Hello, everybody. If it's Wednesday, it's Warhammer, and that must mean it's time for another episode of Warhammer Weekly. By the way, side note, I've been up since 3 a.m. and I had to travel to New York today, so I've actually flown across the country and back. This is going to be a wacky show. I apologize if I'm not completely here, but joining me, as always, is my co-host, Tom. How you doing, buddy?
Hello, friends.
Good to have you back, Tommy. You got headphones on today. Did you get new headphones?
No.
Oh, you have old headphones.
Yeah, I mean, these are headphones. I don't, I've had them for, I don't know, a while.
Like great. I'm glad to see that you've had nice headphones for a long time and yet never put them on. So we've had echoes. That's good.
No, we don't have echoes on mine. Like, that's not my fault.
I hate you. All right. So also here, joining us for the first time, very happy to have him on. It's Mr. Haywo Twitch, or Joe, recent addition into the world of AoS, but somebody who has a long experience in a lot of different competitive games and great insights. If you're not subbed to his channel, you'll find the link down below, and I highly recommend it. Joe, how you doing today, buddy?
Yo.
Very, very subdued. I appreciate how you have started every single one of your recent episodes. You're doing the dream that I had, which was some many years ago, I had talked about how I wanted to do a rotating series of openings with all the other YouTube creators' openings. Like, you speak in their voice, right? And that's how you've opened every one of your shows. Like, I saw you do me or whatever, our show. You've went across the world all over the place, so I love it. It's really good stuff.
You and Tom, I did Doom and Darkness. You know, I did The Dark Artisan. Yep. My accents leave something to be desired, but I think that's part of the fun of how bad they are. So, yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, it's being a little bad is what makes it good.
Yeah.
So, speaking of that, let's talk about the news. See that segue right there? It's important. All right. So, Tom, what do we got, buddy? Let's get into it because we got a lot.
Let's do a rumor engine. Let's start with rumor engines.
You want to start with the rumor engine, Tom? You want to start with the low-hanging fruit?
I do.
All right.
I always do.
Okay, that's fine. We'll bring up the rumor engine here. The most boring rumor engine in a while, but that's fine. Okay, here we go. Let me share my screen. Lock and share. And here we go. Bam. Smoke.
It's a fart. It's a squig fart.
Does this seem like really zoomed into you? Because it looks like super low quality. Like, this has to be the 3D print or something, right? Like, because you can see the texture here. Right? Of the 3D print. Yeah, I believe. I mean, I'm guessing this is a really small puff of smoke that we are way zoomed in on.
You know what this is?
A puff of smoke?
This is pipe smoke.
Okay.
Like, it's part of a pipe or some other like small smoke source. I think it's a pipe. It's a wisping pipe smoke. Elminster is the new model.
Yeah.
Little did you know that that GW has been acquired by WotC.
How would you even guess what this is? This could be one of anything. Like anything. So, in that regard, let's guess. So, Joe, do you have a guess what this is? Go ahead. Plant your flag, buddy. What is this?
Well, I thought I would do some research for this rumor engine so that I would sound smart. But everyone online just kept saying it was Alfarius, so I guess it's Gratz.
That tracks.
Yep.
Totally. There you go. I'm in.
Absolutely.
I will. Here's my planted flag. This smoke is most reminiscent of the smoke that is coming out of the skull of the staff of the Iron Jaws spellcaster.
The weird shaman.
Yeah.
Weird boy.
Yep. So this is the Grot shaman version of that, who also has a little smoke thing to tie it in to the Iron Jaws release. There and or some kind of Iron Jaws related similar spellcaster or something like that. Like, it's an orc and goblin thing. And it's meant to echo that other orc caster. There you go. Boom. There's my guess.
I'm in.
So we have all universally agreed it is goblins of some kind. There you go. Done and dusted. We've solved this one. We cracked the case. All right. Another successful rumor engine. That one is
done.
Okay.
So we learned this week that new free errata comes out along with AoS 2 to provide new elements for all the armies. Vince, do you want to talk about this a little bit with free people?
Sure. So I hope everybody read the free people thing today. Best news, Stank coming down in points. I was excited to see that. Cheaper Stanks. My fully fleshed out 4 Stank army is quickly coming together. So I'm excited about that. It's Imperial Guard in AoS, and I can't wait. But in there they mentioned that there will be this free errata that will come out along with AoS 2 that's going to update a lot of. This didn't seem like a general's handbook thing. This seemed separate from that, and it
seems like all the current allegiances that don't need to be reprinted, right?
I feel it's like more of a rules update of adding different things in to work with the new rules. The specific thing they mentioned was that the free people will have a command trait, right, where you can basically roll a die, and on a 5-up every turn, you get an extra command point.
Right.
So they also talked about how that there will be like other ways in other armies to accrue command points in methods, right? So we know it's not a completely fixed resource. I think we suspected that, but this was sort of the first confirmation that there will be methods of getting at more of these, right? Joe, what did you think of since we haven't got a chance to talk about this yet? What do you think of sort of the command ability thing so far and accruing command points and all of that sort of thing? What did you think of all of these spoilers we've seen so far around this?
I like it. I like it a lot. I'm very interested in it. It opens up a cool way that you can change things or add stuff to the game. Just from like, here's a hero for 100 points, and on his war scroll, it just gives you another command point, like when you choose him for your army. Like, it opens up the space to be able to do that. And that's cool. The basic ones are okay. I much prefer the way Inspiring Presence works in the new version than the old, I think. Even though there's a little less predictive decision-making to do. Because
I think a lot more things are going to die from Battle Shock in the new.
Oh my!
Yeah, because people are going to want to save they're not going to want to waste their points on this stuff. They want to do the combo, And it used to be you would Inspiring Presence this one thing, and then your opponent's like, well, I'm not going to attack that. I'll attack the other thing. Right. And now it's probably more about spreading your damage out a little bit more. Yep. And the rerolling charge ones is a great idea because a failed charge roll is probably the most sad roll in the game currently. It's just the most feel bad roll because it's so polarizing whether you get that charge or not, especially when your opponent takes a turn after you do, and then your guys get countercharged off the table or whatever. And so having the extra shot at rolling that is a pretty good idea. The
like
run
the
one, because symmetry wise, in you're thinking, okay, so there's the movement one, and then there's the Battle Shock one, and then there's the something else. But then there's like a second movement one, which feels a little awkward. But, turn 4 and 5, a lot of times almost everything's dead and you're scrambling to get to an objective. Well, this is sort of the 6 extra inches to try to do that.
Yeah, there's going to be so much tension on using these things, which I actually really enjoy. It seems like it will be a fairly precious resource because even that command trait was only on a 5-up, which I loved. Like, that was exactly the right number. Nailed it. It should not be an easy thing. But I see a lot of like turn 3, turn 4, turn 5 units exploding from Battle Shock when people have like blown their points on combos and have nothing else left to protect from Battle Shock, right? Big units is going to go booms. I totally agree on the failed charge thing. Just this last weekend, I played a game and I had like an Exalted Slanesh Chariot 4 inches away from an entire unit of Blood Reavers that just happened to be shaped like this. So I could just Tokyo drift that thing like right in there. And I was like, oh, I'm going to blow him up so bad. And then I rolled a 3 and I was like, I'm not doing anything. And then it got charged and killed. So yeah, no, I'm with that. I'm totally with that.
I love the run one. Like, it may be because I'm planning on running Daughters, And so suddenly, like that run and charge, like suddenly daughter unit is like a 12-inch move base, and I'm like, ooh, this is gonna happen.
Sure.
Or like the retreat run and charge.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
choose to use it after you've rolled. So you get your shot at just naturally
Yeah.
rolling the 5 or 6 already.
Yep.
Which is nice. You know, it's better than like guessing, and then you kind of want to roll to see what would have happened, and then
the on the space of like what design space this opens up on the subject of that. I mean, we've seen a lot of this in 40K already, so there's no reason that same design space can't be explored. You mentioned like a hero whose sort of job is he just brings a command point with him, right? Like the sort of inveterate commander or something. But at the same time, there are things right now in 40K where like I can cancel one of your stratagems, right? Like there's a thing where like you play your command points, I spend mine and cancel yours.
Oh, you get Force of Will in 40K.
Exactly.
Oh
yeah,
boy.
like there's an Astra Militarum thing where they can just be like, nope, shut it down, and they can cancel one a turn. They have a counter spell for command abilities.
I like that a little too much, I think.
Yeah, like that's the design space that's opened up. I'm not saying that's going to be printed on anything right now, but that is certainly space that we now have access to, right? As well as the obvious things that we've sort of already seen, because I think one of the artifacts or one of the spoiled previews did this, where like spend a command point, roll a die on X, you don't burn the point.
Yeah.
Right. Like I think that was already on one of the artifacts or things that they spoiled. And so like all of this space gets opened up by this.
Or a dangerous space where you have some guy who's like completely overpowered, but he reduces your number of command points by 1. Like he eats 1 as a balancing thing, you know?
Oh, sure.
Which is potentially dangerous, but another way that they could do it.
Or like if you want to, sure. There's so many like it's so Lord of the Pity, right? When I think about that, like the consuming your own resources. Since we're going to talk about some Magic design later and make comparisons, it seems appropriate to just start it up now. But like you could have somebody wildly sort of powerful and maybe even undercosted points wise that would like chew a command point a turn, and if you can't pay that, they just leave. Like that could be a very chaos thing. Right, where they're just like, I'm out. I'm back to the warp. If you can't pay it, I'm out. You know, it's like you have to control this powerful demon through the use of sort of the constant exert of will by your commander. Anyway, just there's a ton of crazy stuff you could do here. So I'll be interested to see what they do really over the next 2 years after we have this. You don't need to do this all at once, right? So, yes. All right, so that was that, Tom. What else we got?
All kinds of stuff. So we had the Seraphon faction focus. Like, there's just so much information coming down the pipe. And so for Seraphon, they talked about like the new Seraphon summoning, which will like you have to be Slan, so it's frog based, as you've noted. Each spell. Yeah. Quick
aside, I could just shout out to Mark Wolf, who was certainly so angry when he read that because he hates the frogs and he likes running like Saurus-led armies. And I was like, well, too bad for you, buddy. No summoning for you. No soup. So yeah, you got to run the frogs.
And each spell that they don't cast, it's like, I don't know that it's truly each spell that they don't cast. Like, I don't know if you can do it once or if it's intended to do it once more per turn, but it seems that currently each spell that they don't cast a turn gives them 3 summoning points. If the general is alive, it gives 1. Astroloth, Bearer, 1 or more gives a D3, and then you can spend these like points on to summon units. And then like I think like a Salamander or 10 Skinks was like 6 points. It was in multiples of 6, it looked like. So like 6, 12, 18.
Yeah. We didn't see the whole table, but like 3, we saw like what 3 pterodons were like 12 points and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, yes, because a regular frog could gen 9 if he just cast nothing, right? Because they're triple casters. Old Croaky's knocking out a dirty dozen a turn if he casts nothing.
Yeah, right? And I just can't imagine that. Like, that seems like a lot.
It's funny to blow it all on Skinks. Right, to just have this guy crapping out tenors of Skinks left and right and just polluting the board.
Right, or you just like every other turn you drop like a 300 point like Krokgar, or like a Bastildon or whatever.
Sure.
That just, it seems like a little bit.
I mean, the answer is kill the frog. Like,
right,
if you
but
thought it was
not everybody has that option.
I hear you. I'm just saying, like, certainly the answer is kill the frog. Like,
right, and with the endless spells, like some of the stuff that's been released with like the barrier that like blocks all line of sight, or at least blocks like shooting line of sight, like that becomes a lot harder in this new world.
There are going to be some interesting difficulties to killing the frog, but kill the frog if you can kill the frog. That's what I would say. Because it is frog dependent, right? Like, you kill the frog, this all shuts off, except for the D3 from the Astroloth Bearer, if he's still
right. And he also teleports around the table still, from what we can tell. So like catching him is going to be an issue. It's going to be a thing.
Sometimes your orcs, you got to run faster. I don't know what to tell you.
Indeed. We had a bunch of rules previews. One was like choose a realm that your army's from. This one grants a set of like magic items. You can replace one of your existing items, so people won't be stacking up these items, but there's pretty sweet ones. Like my favorite was the I don't know if you guys looked through any of them, but like my favorite was like the Griff Feather or whatever.
Sure.
Like the neg 1 to hit and bonus movement. Like, you know what that said to me? You have a non-monster hero, they can have Mirror Shield. That's what that just said. Because they're at natural neg 1 if they're near a unit, and then with that they're at neg 2 to shoot and shooting neg 1 in melee.
Sure. Like the Griff Feather was fine. Like in the thing, they talked about some other ones. They had like the thing about the Griff Feather versus a lot of the other ones I saw. I didn't like the Griff Feather. I knew you would.
You hate like static bonuses.
Correct.
I like reliability.
Yeah, I understand, and that's the most boring. Like it's the most boring because it's the thing you choose every time. No,
I like
thing
winning.
On a 3-up.
I like winning.
That's so like, yes, I understand. That's
so
what I'm saying.
Of you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct. I get it. And my point is, if you're going to make random effects are better because they defeat that reliability. And a lot of the magic items that I saw there, like in that article, like the Wraith Bow and the Rock Jaws and stuff like that, were all like, roll a die on this plus this thing happens. Right? And I like that because then it is much less reliable and it is much less predictable. Right? But the problem is that people will take boring but reliable stuff every time. Every time. You'll just take the +1 movement over the 5-up something awesome happens. It's got to be so awesome. And that's just a shame. So I'm hoping to see more of the on a die this thing happens rather than the reliably predictable thing.
Don't project your fun onto me.
I'm projecting what I think makes a good game onto you. As a design principle, since that's what we're here talking about, 6 reliable solid items will outweigh 80 random items, and the 80 will never get chosen. So you made 80 pointless items and 6 that are of value.
Yep.
That's close to how many artifacts they've made. So
yeah, it's going to be like 80
realms.
Right.
Yeah.
And
so the good news is that you'll have an easy decision. There's only 6 you have to make decisions on.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah, my big concern is exactly that, right? Like that Griff Feather charm, I look at that and I'm like, that's so much better than any of the other ones that were in this article. Like, there's no question it's better, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's completely reliable and does a defensive thing. And defensive things are all, it does defense and mobility, 2 of the best things in the game, and it does it completely reliably.
Yep. I know. Like, think about Nurgle. Think about Nurgle. Like, I see that. Like, I think about like a Harbinger in a Plague Touch Warband that's now neg 2 to shoot, neg 2 in melee, and he's like a high mobility. Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Sure. And like, there's no way you're going to take that over the 5-up to retain a command point. There's no way. It's not even a choice. Like, of course that other thing's better. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what, like, so whatever. It's fine. We'll, we will
it's
deal
fine.
with it. It's all fine. I mean, traditionally, this has been the sort of thing that they don't nail on the first try out.
Right.
Like, there's going to be some winners and losers in this list of 84 items. But I mean,
we're gonna have some battle brew. That's all I'm saying.
sure, and that's fine as long as they appropriately then sort of move it over time. I don't have a problem with dead items. Let me be clear. Like even right now, you look at any given army book, there's a bunch of dead items no one ever picks.
Right. There's like 6 items that everybody picks.
But that's just it. As long as there's at least like in an army book, if 6 of the 18 are viable for different types of armies, thumbs up. I'm calling that a success. Okay. But the problem is I don't want to get to like 6 out of the 84. That's concerning to me, right? Especially when it's an anybody can choose these things thing, right? Because like I don't want to like, oh, game 1, I'm gonna fight daughters and they have the Griff Feather charm, and game 2, I fight some Ideneth and their leader has the Griff Feather charm, and game 3, it's free people and they've Griff Feather charm, and we get it. It's all that, right? Who's got your Griff Feather charm? Like, I mean, that's what I don't want to see happen.
So if they make an unbind scroll, how often do you think we're going to see that?
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, not necessarily often, because it would depend on how easy you have access to the new Stormcast wizard who has usefulness and an unbind scroll, or the Wood Elf caster who has usefulness and an unbind scroll.
What's better than 1 unbind scroll, Vince?
2 is generally better. I won't disagree with you on that. Sure. Again, like none of this is a negative to me. Like, it is what it is. I'm super excited about all these new items. Like, I'm on board. Cool.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll get the item card deck. I can't wait for that. Like, we're getting that thing. That's going to happen. So, and I love the idea that they're realm based. Like, obviously this stuff comes out of like these magic items. There are basically 12 per realm, 7 realms. They confirmed that Azer is the realm that doesn't have stuff, which I did think was a bit weird. It seems like Sigmar would soup his people up, but
let's be honest. Like, Vince, you have a theory about that.
I do. I have a fun theory. I have a fun theory and a realistic theory. Would you like to hear my fun theory, realistic theory?
I do, and I so hope this is true. Like, you have no idea.
Sure. Fun theory. There is no more Azer. Once Malign Portents is done, there is no more Azer. We're blowing up heaven, baby. Nagash hates Sigmar. He's got a plan. We know there's a big necroquake. End of it is world goes boom. Like, heaven goes boom. Space Station Sigmar exploded. Maybe Sigmar's got a new crappier version of the Forge. He's got to he escapes, of course, because he's Sigmar. And if he can survive,
people gets out.
Yeah, if he can survive reality imploding into the chaos waste, he can survive whatever Nagash is doing. But he takes a bunch of Stormcast. He basically evacs the city. Azer blows. And then he has to reset up on like one of the normal realms in like Hammer Hall.
Hammer Hall. Of course, Hammer Hall, because it hammers.
Sure.
And so like, yeah. And that explains why the Magic Arcanum, like the Sacrosanct Chamber, gets involved. Is they have to evacuate heaven.
Right. So the wizards have to come out and like get everybody out of there. And yeah. Like,
and they need them on the field to reforge people on the spot rather than doing it at the anvil.
Right, because their God Forge or whatever has been blown up, and busily, like, whichever one it was, the dwarf Grungy or whatever helped him do that. I don't know. So they're busy back at work trying to remake this unremakeable thing, and it would also be funny because you realize if they blew up Space Station Sigmar, if they pulled this trigger, what is Space Station Sigmar built around?
The old world. Like, Correct. This is the last hope. This is the last hope.
That the core of the old world is
the old world twice.
Yeah, so like it would be the final nail.
It's right? not dead enough. You have to.
Well, yeah, with the going of the compendium scrolls, which is something else we found out this week. Like we didn't have it in our news items, but they confirmed that like Bretonnians aren't coming back as compendium scrolls; they're coming back as legends.
Yeah,
the legend scrolls, and so like your TK, your Bretts, like they're on the way out. And so, like, that is the last nail in the hope of the old world coffin. We're playing those scrolls. And so if they blew up Space Station Sigmar, like, it's gone. It's all gone.
It reminds me of the Time of Troubles in Forgotten Realms. You guys, are you?
Oh, yeah.
Where they kind of did a story excuse for 3rd edition coming out.
Yeah.
Right,
so Nagash kind of summons 2nd edition AoS by doing all this stuff. And that's a fun little tie-in for the edition and things that are happening in the lore.
Yeah.
Why things are different.
Yeah.
That's my fun theory. Now, that would take some real guts to pull that trigger and blow up heaven.
Nobody's gonna miss it. It's not like we were fighting an Aesir anyways.
No,
like
that's
it was
fine.
always in the untouchable place anyways, with
Yeah.
no real character.
It would also darken up the world real fast. Right?
Like grim dark.
Well, when heaven gets blown up, that's a big deal. It seems like if heaven got destroyed, I feel like that's like that seems like you're planting a flag about the nature of the universe. I'm just saying. You know, that would certainly make the world a darker place, because some of the ray of hope in AoS is that Aesir does exist, that there is this place guarded by Sigmar, protected from chaos, where people can live in peace, right? And destroying that says something. Now, whatever. This is all that I said. I don't think it's happening. My realistic answer for why you don't have the Aesir stuff is because Sigmar saves that stuff for his Stormcast, and that just comes out. Those items and things all come out in the Stormcast book. There you go. There's the realistic answer.
That's just so boring, though.
Sorry, but I mean that's the simple answer for where that stuff, because of course that stuff is for his souped up people. By the way, to answer a question, no, the high elf people are in Haish. Teclis and Tyrion are Haish.
That's the real heaven,
right? Well, it's
the light angels,
the realm of light,
rather than the robot angels.
Yeah. So there you go. Anyway, that's a fun theory. So we've got like 84 artifacts. We'll certainly get cards. I
hope they blow it up. I do. I hope that GW has the balls to be like, okay, we're doing this. We're pulling the trigger. The old world is truly gone.
I don't know. I like Space Station Sigmar. It makes cool art. I would be sad if it was gone, just because I like the art. It's
yeah,
cool
the art is cool. Yeah.
Like those pictures of the city and stuff, and are just really some awesome pieces of art. And I would be sad to think that blew up. I like there being a little ray of hope in the world. I think that is what sets it apart. Somebody asked in the comments of like, do you want the world to be that grimdark? No, I don't. It's one of the reasons I don't like 40K is that there's no, like the world of 40K. I play 40K because I like elements of it, but the world is just too dark and too dour and too, like, at least here there's like, yeah, there's this cool place, and barbarian Jesus is up there ruling over it with his hammer. And, you know, he can't make the world perfect, but he's given the good fight. And that's cool. You know, it's like the good guys have got a shot. All right, that's cool. So, but the world can still be, I mean, what would you call him?
No, he's barbarian Jesus. There's no question about it.
I don't mean that in any kind of insulting way.
He's like barbarian, like Odin Jesus.
He's certainly, but I mean, he basically raised from the dead. He, you know, blah, blah, blah. He's very much a Messiah figure, whatever, right? Like a sort of an Old Testament Messiah figure, right?
Sure.
Anywho, I don't want to get Tom ranting on anything to do with his professional career.
No, we're good. We're good. I can keep it contained.
All right.
I had a 14-hour workday today, so like I'm dialed into gluing models right now.
Got it. All right, let's keep moving through the news.
So separate rules are going to be coming on how to choose realms to battle in. I think it's going to be either like I don't know I don't know what I think. What do y'all think it's going to be? What do you think we'll see for the where we're doing battles in?
Yeah, the rules for this, because like we know you're going to be able to pick a realm for your army, which is cool. Let's theme the army, blah blah blah. These are my dudes from the realm of metal or fire. I think we all kind of often did that anyways. Yeah. Right, like in Age of Sigmar,
I did Realm of Beast. Like my Nurgle was Realm of Beast. It was the Horned Legion, and my KO have been Akshi.
Yeah, my Zinch were Chamon, and my and my Iron Jaws were Akshi. Yeah. So Joe, but what do you? So let's go to Joe first.
Sure.
Rules for picking the realm you fight in. We know the current rules. You can both say it if you don't. You can both pick one. If you don't pick the same one, you roll off. High roll decides. Okay. Are we going to keep that? What are we doing? Go ahead. Your thought. We'll all plant our flag on this one.
I think, man, it's just got to be I know this is the boring answer, but it's just got to be a table like Mystical Terrain. I think it is a roll. I think it is a roll to determine what your what the battlefield you're fighting on is, and it comes with some rules like Mystical Terrain does.
So you're thinking like a 2d6 table with like the 7 realms sort of making the sub spread of it, and then like a player 1 chooses or a player 2 chooses at the top and bottom or something like that.
Because it's got to be part of the basic rules, because it's such a good idea to have the realm you're in matter in a game way.
Right.
So it forces the players to realize that there's a real world here that matters in some way. So one of the big problems with AoS originally was it's infinite space where just anything can happen and your guys can be anywhere. Well, then you have infinite space and it's kind of like nothing matters and you don't really know what's going on then. But if you're really like in the basic rules, I mean, defining each of the places, and you can be from a place and it matters. It kind of like forces your players to be like, look, we have a world that you can look at and it matters.
Right.
And so, yeah, I know it's boring, but I think it's a table that you roll on.
I think you're right. I think it is a table you roll on. The question is do you think that they'll force random magic? And what I mean by that is
choices, like
because we know that being in certain realms grants certain wins of magic. Like they said that in the article. Like
sure, or boost certain spells as well, right? Like
boost certain spells.
Yeah.
And so like that bonus spell that you're getting, is that spell being thrust upon you by your random roll so that everybody that's on the table gets that new spell? Or are you going to, like, when you choose your item, like where you're hailing from, are you tapping into their magic, even though you may not be playing on that realm?
I think you are, because in the Stormcast podcast, Ep 2, they talk about some of the winds of magic costing points between 20 and 40.
Right.
No, that's the endless
spells. You're
spells.
going to be like buying them. Oh, you're talking about realm spells, not eternal.
Yeah,
the generic realm spells, like banishment.
Like banishment, the 50 spells. That we know that you're going to have lores that you can specialize in. And so the question is like, are you going to be forced into that? Like, so that suddenly everybody at the table has to choose what lore they're going to do.
I've got to think that comes from the realm you choose to be from.
Yeah, it's got to.
Maybe. But then, because
now people are list building when they're supposed to be handing each other, your war scrolls and stuff, and it makes, well, I suppose who cares if it makes tournaments last longer? TOs will figure it out, but I think it does make it.
Well, and if it's a deck of cards, like it becomes a very obvious, like, okay, we're in this, so I get to choose one of these spells. This is my spell or whatever. I don't know. It's just an idea. Like, it'd be neat if like from a random standpoint, most likely that's not what it's going to be. It's going to be wherever you're from, you get to choose that lore as an alternative lore if you want that, instead of, like, one of your wizards can have the lore of light instead of your, Zinj lore or whatever. Mm-hmm. That'll probably be the space that we're going to be.
Which makes sense. Then there's an opportunity cost to it. It would match up also by choosing that realm. You're also then limiting the artifacts you have, right? So you can't pick across and like just get the best artifact from this one and the best spell from this one. Like you've got to. They can naturally restrict, right, in some way.
Right.
No, I agree. I think that if they just made it either if they made it a random roll, then they also always have the out of, right, of saying, like, if both of you want to play in a particular realm, just do so. Yeah. Right. And TOs can then just say round 1 is in the realm of fire, same as you do with scenarios.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like TOs, when you do a tournament, you say round 1 is going to be duality of death or whatever, right? Okay, well, it's duality of death in the realm of fire. You know, you're not rolling at the beginning of the round when you rock up to the table.
So, and it's already decided and settled at that point. So,
right. And then all of the other decisions, because if my realm choice is already being made in list building for me, right, then I don't need to know what realm I'm in to choose that stuff. Like I can already pick my spell. I can pick my artifact. I can make those choices pre-showing up to the table and needing to roll, right? Because there's that distinction of where we're from and where we're fighting.
Yeah, I'm excited about like the possibility then when I think about things like I think about like Herner's events or like Beasts of War or Realms of War or whatever, where like you could potentially have tables that are in certain realms. And so like when you rock up to a table, like this is always Akshi.
Right. Which would be the other way you
there-
could go, right? Yeah, you could have areas that are just themed or tables that are themed around that.
Well, and you could just do that in general. And what I mean by that is like just label all your tables in multiples of 7. So table 1 is light, table 2 is shadow, table 3 is Gur. And then like when you rock up, you're like, oh, this is where we're at.
Sure.
Yeah. It's interesting. Lots of options.
Yeah, and those endless spells, which you mentioned, the Stormcast podcast, all 13 in one box. All those big weird models in one box.
Just the first wave of them.
Sure. Yeah. We know there'll be more because every time they make a new army, they'll make more, and they'll make more on their own, probably as a supplement.
Yeah.
That's a crazy box. I'm trying to picture what that box looks like. That's a heck of a lot of weird things.
So I've been thinking about this.
All right, I'm ready.
Do you want my like crazy theory,
Babe,
or
this
do you
is-
want my
of course.
like my tame theory?
no
Start with
crazy
the
theory?
Crazy theory. Yeah.
They roll it into the base box because all Ben said was there's 13 in the box,
Okay.
Okay.
so that when you buy the new starter, you get your 2 armies, you get a book, and you get in the book is the magic rules, and you get the models for all the spells.
You don't think that there would be? See, I see. So let's talk about the products. It's so funny that we don't even know the products, and
Yeah.
this is like coming
We
out
don't.
anytime.
Yeah.
All right, product list. Here we go. 1, new base box set consisting of Stormcast versus Night Hunt. We all agree that's a thing.
Yes and no. I think that we'll have both the big and the small version of that.
Sure.
So I think
that's
we'll
fine.
get a Thunder and Blood version, which is like the pared down armies with
Yeah,
maybe not like the 2 named guys, no rule book, nothing else.
Hmm.
So just like the troops in like a dual set, like a lower price point, like an 85. And then I think we'll get the deluxe, which is the 160, like the or not
Just
army,
like with 40K,
yeah, the 40K, yeah.
where it had both armies and the rule book and all that stuff inside.
Yep.
Yeah.
But what I'm pitching is that they'll be the 13 magical models instead of like terrain or anything like else like
I'm
that.
disagreeing. I'm saying malign sorcery, since we already saw a cover that said malign sorcery in the reveal. That's a separate thing, okay? That's either going to be the book and all the spells, or the book is like together or separate.
Yep.
Okay. Then you've got the GHB 18, which we know comes out at the same time, right?
Yep.
Then you've got the Night Hunt book itself, which comes out around the same time.
Yep. GHB.
Well, I said that one. That was number 3.
Oh,
Right.
sorry.
And then obviously all the, like, it's free, but it's still a thing that's coming out, is all the erratas, the war scrolls, all that kind of stuff, right? And then obviously the kits for the individual, like we'll see some kits for the individual Stormcast and Night Hunt. They're not only going to be.
Well,
in that
I think those
box.
will roll out slower though. I don't think.
Yes,
those will
they'll
come out
tail on the end, right? Yeah,
Right.
That's a huge amount of stuff for 1 month. Like, what is going on? That's crazy. I mean,
they did it for 40K.
sure, that's fair. It's all a bunch of new stuff. Yeah, it was huge.
Now it's our turn. Makes
That's
sense.
right. It's our summer. You guys got last summer. This
Yeah.
one's ours. Yeah.
Next one is Lord of the Rings.
Oof. Well, sure. Yeah.
They are doing
Shadespire?
no, they are doing a re-release of Lord of the Rings to bring it up, combine
I
it with
know.
The Hobbit, and bring everything together. But anyway,
I'm just being flippant.
Okay.
don't be flippant to the Lord of the Rings people. All right. So, I mean, Joe, here's my question. What
Okay.
of all of this are you interested in? Like, what are you looking at? When you're looking at it here, knowing what you do, what's caught your attention? Like, are you going to go out and be like, yep, just drop it all in the cart? Or are there specific elements you think you're that are interest you more than else?
Are you talking about kit releases or books or just everything?
From
Right.
from the swath of what you see on the horizon.
Basic rules GHB is an auto purchase,
Agreed.
obviously. 13 spells would be if I had an army with a wizard in it, which I don't.
Do you think that's going to change?
I don't know. So one thing I'm excited about as a mixed player, right, is that spell lores are something that we didn't have access to, and that was fine because that was a balancing part of being able to draw from anywhere.
Yep.
But now that magic is the sickness, that might be too much of a downside, and so I'm pleased that I can choose like a lore of high-ish or something like that.
Right.
And as such, it makes spellcasters sort of like worth playing, perhaps. And so, they're overhauling the magic system. It's not the worst idea to consider using the magic system.
Sure. Yeah.
They're overhauling command abilities. Beastclaw has one command ability in its army, and it sucks. But Order, now there's some good stuff that we can draw from. So I'm excited about that as well. Whether or not I get the endless spells, I'll probably end up picking them up, even if I don't play an army with a wizard, because I play with a bunch of other people, and I'm pulling my friends into this hobby with tactics. Because you want, like, a huge part of the game is a community. Like, why do we play Age of Sigmar? Is it because it's better than 40k? Not really. If all our friends played 40k, we'd be playing 40k, because it's such a community-driven game.
Yeah, I will openly admit, like, it is absolutely the community. It's the friends I had, and when all of us collectively like AoS better.
Yeah.
That we also have a fantasy bent in our group, being like D&D players before anything else and all of that. So
sure, and I probably like the models better in AoS as well. But it's like my one friend's getting into Death and he wants to play maybe Nagash, maybe Archon. My other friend is considering Daughters of Cain or maybe Sylvaneth. Like, there will be uses for these endless spells, even if it's not me.
Sure.
Yeah,
and
sure.
Real stuff on the table that's painted, that's just always better than little poker chips. Mm-hmm. So yeah, for me, it's going to be General's Handbook, Basic Book, 13 endless spells. Night Haunt looks cool, but I'm not about to, get it. New Stormcast, maybe here or there. We'll have to see where everything lands.
Sure. There's a lot of, like, there's the problem is I couldn't commit to either of, like, the I don't really care about adding to my Stormcast, nor do I care that much about ghosts. I've never liked ghosts. Piss off ghosts. Everybody together now.
Yeah.
And so but yeah, I agree with you completely, like, on that stuff. And plus, never am I more interested in, like, rekindling old armies. Like, I mean, I've got 10 armies sitting around me here, and never am I more interested in, like, returning to one than when they get new rules or allegiance abilities or spells or options. Like, what's suddenly on the table? A lot of the when the terrain shifts under your feet that fast. Right. Suddenly I'm like, oh, like, I'm pretty excited about Slaanesh. I'm not going to lie. Right. Like, I am watching carefully for that. That's going to be a big old in. I'm in hard on that. So we'll see. Whenever that happens.
For Slaanesh.
Indeed. I'm in all the way. I'm all the way in on Slaanesh. I'm deep in Slaanesh. That's what I'm saying. Okay.
There's a joke here, but I just can't find it.
No, I don't know. Nope. Nothing coming to mind.
Well, hope the book comes out soon.
Absolutely. All right. So what else we got, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, we just had some of the rules that we didn't talk about, like, some of the crazy stuff with anyways, the other thing with shooting was that we got confirmation that like, the shooting units can only shoot into combat, like, into either units they are in combat with or into, like,
3 inches away. Yeah.
3 inches away.
So if you're in combat with multiple, you can choose to shoot either one of those units, and blah. It's not model based, it's unit based. I really enjoyed reading the Facebook commentary around this post. It was really one of my favorite things, because there is no more divisive issue than this sort of weird oddity of the Warhammer world. Yep. And it's like the gamut of opinions, right? Of, like, this didn't need to happen. This is fine. Why can I shoot into combat and hit people normally? Why isn't this model based, right? Like, why, like, sort of Tom's previous thing that he had recommended. Why isn't there also a penalty? Why can I shoot it all? Like,
right.
Boom! Like, like, in reading those comments, how can you hold any of those opinions? And here's what I mean. You must realize that your opinion you're writing is no more correct than everybody else who also gave a good reason for the way they want it to work, right? Like,
no, I'm pretty sure mine's right.
Yeah, it's not. There's all of these. So all you can do is come down on like what's the best design choice and hope you've made the right one, right? You've got to go to sort of the gamist construct around it, because any of them can be defended depending on what you want to put your finger on as your reason, right?
Right.
And so I love absolutely that there is no winning here, right? Like no matter what they wrote, they were just like everybody was going to have a different opinion. For me, I'm pretty happy with it. It's fine. It's fine. Sure. Shoot at people you're in combat with. I think for the most part, you probably did that most of the time anyways. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, most of my hand axes on those Volkites were going into the unit that I was in combat with. Okay.
Sure.
I mean,
well, and as you pointed out, like your hope for like something like a big Arcanaut unit, if it got charged, was that you could turn around and, you know, kill the people that were in you. Because if they got through that, then they win, right? Like once they blew through the line. So like in general, that's not to say you might not have put a few skyhook shots like, somewhere else. But
yeah,
like,
I mean, like all this says is I need to have a 3-inch gap in between the two lines.
Sure.
So that like they can't get pulled into combat, and then I still get all the shots into whatever units I want.
Yeah.
Whatever.
The important part is shots. So, yeah, I mean, I thought it was as light a touch as I expected, and I was happy to see it. I do not want to go back to like you fire into combat, you randomly hit your own people and all this stuff. I understand the appeal to verisimilitude, people. I really do. Okay. I'm sympathetic to it. But from a game design perspective, this is the right answer. It just is. Like, if we're going to change it, this is the answer. This is as light a touch as we can. So we don't have to deal with... I'm still here. We can still hear you. Can you still hear me? Am I here? Hello?
I hear you, yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it's just like, I'll update my shooting is fine video to be like, this change is also fine. This is all fine. It's fine. There we go. All right.
Hey, you're back.
Okay. I don't know why I would be doing that. Okay, cool. Go ahead. Back to you. News.
I mean, that's it.
No, that, anything else that we want? Oh, we should talk about summoning a little more, right? Like we should.
Yeah, I mean, it's free. Whatever. It's free.
Speaking of people horribly overreacting online.
There you go. That's a big one.
The sky is not falling. It is just being summoned by the ground.
Yeah.
And and it is not free. People's definitions of the word free are bizarre to me, because they're like, well, that means your Slann can just not cast 3 spells for 2 turns and then summon something for free. I'm like, you just told me it's cost. It's opportunity cost. That's a real thing. Like, those 6 spells they were going to cast would have probably mattered for 2 turns, you know? Or, undead, you know, off of your graveside, you can just summon 40 skeletons every turn for free. Well, it's not free. You spend a command point on it. And there's a bunch of counterplay, which you can do.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, we don't know costs.
Yeah.
It looks like we have an almost universal cost reduction in a lot of, like, units. Like, just in all the articles, like, I see stuff where they're talking about, like, reduced, like, steam tank costs and reduced, like, KO costs across the board and all their ships and all that stuff. And it seems like they didn't talk about that at all with, like, skeletons.
Yeah, right. A lot of fighty things in the armies that don't have those easy access to summoning things were clearly getting cheaper, right?
Like, yeah, like suddenly you may be paying like, yeah, like it could really matter cost-wise in the end, is what I would say.
Yeah, maybe the cost of summoning stuff stays the same and everything else goes down. Maybe summoning goes up. Yeah. Who knows? Like, we'll just have to see.
Yeah.
They're not going to advertise like, and now these things are more expensive. Like, they want you to get excited about it, you know? So of course they only talk about the points going down. They're not going to.
It's free. Everything else costs 200 points more. What?
Right.
I've woken up in a cold sweat a couple times, dreading that nightmare scenario where my pigs get more expensive in my Iron Jaws. Like, that's all I want. Just please don't change my piggy cost. I'm afraid because like they're bringing down Gordrak and the Mega Boss and all this stuff.
They're going to go to 160.
Right.
You know they're going to go to 160.
You shut your face. They are not. They're going to stay where they are. You hush. You hush that.
You know they are worth 160. Look at me in the eye. You know they are worth 160.
So anyway, moving on to our pick of the week segment. Look, I'm just saying, Pig should stay at 140. I'll be very sad if they go to 160. I really will. But anyway, let's not talk about that. Okay, let's not tread my. I'm gonna like have to. There's gonna be like the sad Affleck meme for me when I read that. That just me sitting there with like some, just some sad music playing, just holding the pig, remorsefully staring at it.
My old friend.
Exactly. Okay. So, I mean, I think that to go back to this, I agree. I'm not blowing up the world over summoning. As we said, we mentioned it last time, because we kind of had a hint of this. We didn't have the full rules. The death one is the only one that scares me a little, but that's probably largely based on what their points cost is. That could be, and when I'm saying scares me a little, I mean that like I've got 20% reserved concern over out of my 80% not worried about it. Does that make sense?
I mean, Jake just said that Relian only brought back like 80 skeletons in turn 2 last time.
I think it was 80 skeletons over the course of the game.
Oh, was it? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh. But the point of that was like this will hinder Alpha Strike armies against like summoning stuff, because you'll bubble wrap with these large hordes. They'll blow up the horde, and then from the back of the table, they'll just snap their fingers and have that horde back on. And so now you put yourself in bad position.
Sure.
For the counter assault.
Yeah, the rest of the summoning, everything else I've seen, I'm like, it's fine. Yeah. That's all fine. Like Nurgle summoning, Blood Tithe summoning, the Slanesh summoning, all
Alariel.
That. Yeah, Alariel, like none of that bothered me. The ghouls, even the ghouls and like their stuff. Hey, I am very glad to see that like Flesh Eater courts might actually be not total hot garbage. That's pretty exciting. Like that they can show up and get a bunch more ghouls. That's cool.
I mean, they're still going to hit the blender of Daughters of Cain with those 5-up armor saves and just explode.
Good. I'm glad. Like that's a neat concept for an army. Like, yes, extremely low defenses, but constantly recycling is a concept for an army, right?
Yeah.
Like it is ironically, the zombie horde is better portrayed by ghouls in the Warhammer universe, but that's what it is, right?
Yep.
So there you go.
Yep.
All right.
So,
pick of the week. Yeah, absolutely. So Joe, what would you like to share with everybody?
I would like to share a non-AoS podcast, but it's one that I based my little segment on here from a game design hero of mine, Mark Rosewater, who is the lead designer of Magic the Gathering. He did a GDC talk for 2016 Game Developers Conference, and it is called 20 Lessons in 20 Years. And no, I'm not going through all 20. I just pulled some things from it to highlight them, but it should be watched. It's about Magic, but even if you're not interested in Magic the Gathering, even if you're not really interested in game design, it's still, I think, interesting to watch anyway, because he talks psychology, he talks just general rules of life. Very, very interesting. It's an hour long. Go ahead and watch it if you want. Also watch my channel. Duh.
It's a good pick. I don't mind that at all. Like I said, his channel will be linked down below. I agree. All right, Tommy, what about you, buddy? What do you got?
I'm going to promote an app this week. I picked up an app called what was this? Called Paint Picker.
There you go. Yep.
And it's an app for like your iPhone or your Galaxy or whatever. I don't know. I have an iPhone. For phones, there we go. That like you choose your paint color line, like it has the standard color wheel. And then you choose your paint color lines that you want it to do, and you select a point on the color wheel. And not only does it like match that, it shows you all like the complementary and secondary colors and all of the things that you would need for like the triadic, the tetradic, like all the different colors in the various paint lines to match that. Like it's my perfect type of tool, because I hate, like, I just want to go find the real paint for the thing that I want to do rather than do mixing. And so I'm like, just tell me the name and I'll buy it. and it does that. It does it. It's like, go buy this. And I'm like, done.
Yeah, it's a cool app. I went and checked it out too. And I think it was just like a member of the community made it, right? Like it's just Yeah. Super cool.
Yep.
So I will I'll link that down below because I agree. It's a cool, if you ever have some color composition questions, it's good.
Yeah. It does like Vallejo, like not only GW, but like Vallejo, Army Painter, Scale 75, P3, like the whole deal, like all of them. Yeah. Like not all of them, but like all of the like main or primary lines.
Sure. No Scale 75. No war colors in there. There we go. That's what I was trying to say. Yeah.
No
Yeah.
No war.
Which is fine. But I mean, that can happen over time. And just people requested enough, I'm sure it would show up. And it would be an easy one too, because it'd be like Emerald 2. There's no funky names. It's all just color 1 through 5. That's why I like it. That's a good naming scheme. Gets rid of the nonsense. Okay. So my pick is going to be a battle report that's actually, it's so funny you mentioned that, Tom, because there's a very fun battle report that I enjoyed from Venomous Wargaming of the Flesh Eater Courts versus the Daughters of Cain. So there you go. It's that exact thing. So if you want to see a situation evolve, much like Tom described, you can go watch that. It's a cool battle report. People who aren't familiar with Venomous, they do like the much longer form battle reports. So they're more like the full video. They're good for having on if you're doing a long paint sesh. So check that out. And plus you get to see some Doc on the table, which I watch a lot of Doc battle reports because I like watching Doc battle reports. It's fun. It's fun to watch.
You like watching things die.
I do. I like watching the daughters shred through enemy armies. It makes me happy. All right. So let's turn to some hobby time. So obviously with AoS 2 coming out, I know it's been an interesting time to do hobby, but Joe, what have you been working on, if anything?
I've been working on putting some touches on my Beastclaw Raiders that I haven't touched for a year. They've been shelved here since 17 dropped, but they were my first army that I ever painted, and so I've come back to them, and I'm like, oh boy, okay, let's do something called a highlight here, because we're still we're still learning. But I have Beastclaw that are kind of Gutbuster themed. And so, like, for instance, we have a Stonehorn that's being ridden by lead belchers.
Sure.
Who are shooting cannons because they're geniuses. And, Mornfang that are holding little, those bear traps in their hands and stuff. This guy's got red pants, that's it. So I've done it for him. And I've got Nagash over here, and I just chopped his head in half.
Okay.
Because I like chopping stuff up and getting the Dremel in there and doing customizations. I find that really fun. As a part of the hobby that a lot of people maybe don't or are afraid to do, but no, it's fun. So that's what I'm working on.
Awesome, much respect, dude. You take a Dremel to Nagash's head. Respect, brother. That's great. I feel I'm absolutely I like where you're living right there. I felt the same thing when I cut the head off of my Maw Crusher, cut it in half to reshape it to make the bird head Maw Crusher. I was like, well, either this works or this model's ruined. Let's do this. Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, so. If it doesn't work, well, then you get to learn how to use green stuff, and that's just another way. It forces you to learn stuff to fix problems. So
that's a great answer. Absolutely, you can't go wrong. You can only create more opportunities to learn. Mm-hmm. I love it. All right. Tommy, what are you working on, man? You're back to working on stuff.
Yeah.
What are you working on, Tom?
I'm gluing Stormcast together right now.
You've been working on other things. I know you've been working on your daughters.
Yeah, you may be able to see. I have some base coats back here. I have my undershading and all that on my witches. I haven't shared my scheme, have I? Oh yeah. I have a witch. I have an actual scheme that I've done. Yeah, and so that's happening.
You did one.
So,
one down.
I did one.
119 to go.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, they're coming. So, and I have another 30 that have been zenithalled and then undershaded, and so, yeah, I'm well on my way working on their flesh. So,
cool. I'm gonna predict you get 60 in before you give up on that premise and make a new army list. But you'll get to
No,
60.
I've already made a new army list because like as people said that like I probably need to drop one of those blocks of 30 and pick up Marathi. Like, and that's the right move. Like with the new magic stuff going on, like the fact that she'll have 3 spells around plus 1 to cast, like, and then she'll be untouchable at range initially. I mean, it's the right way to go. So I've already remade the list.
Sure. Did somebody say Marathi? So this is what I've been working on. Her big version is still down in the box. She's not together yet, but baby Marathi is more or less done there. I need to figure out like this. She just feels like she needs a little something more, but I'm not sure what yet.
I think it's an arm reposition. I don't like the like pointing. I think
you cannot reposition an arm at this stage. At this stage.
Oh,
it's not helpful advice. But like, yeah, she has this arm straight out thing. Yeah, you'd have to, the way her body is, you'd have to really do some work to get it repositioned because she is strangely positioned and locked. She's very few pieces. And also just unusual things you don't think about. Like this wing right here actually connects to her hair, not her back. Okay.
Aw.
Yeah.
I'm sad.
So like she's just a very interesting model. But yeah, there you go. So she's ready to go, or nearly so. And then we'll get to her true form. But I really once I like I want to see if I can find the audio drop from the original Daughters of Cain reveal and put together a little that whole thing and then her speech at the end and see if I can like rip that into a video make a little video for her because
for your reveal.
Yeah, because I like her a lot. She's pretty awesome. So there you go. All right. As always, we want to know what you're working on. Hopefully, drop in the comments or chat about it or whatever. As always, the goal for this show is that we're creating some kind of mildly entertaining white noise that gets you painting. And if that's happening, success. There we go. All right. So let's pivot to our feature segment here. I brought Joe on today because you, sir, have impressed me right out of the gate with your videos because clearly, like myself, I love that you picked that GDC video because like you don't even need to send me the link on that. I have that one saved as well. It's one of my favorite videos ever. Okay. I too am a longtime fan of Rosewater, longtime fan of sort of design principles and this sort of stuff and how these things get applied to Warhammer. Obviously, I've done a whole series of videos on game design and Warhammer and using the lessons from other games and stuff, right? So I thought it would be fun to sort of explore this, especially as we go into AoS 2. Talk about what have we seen so far? Where are the lessons where they've picked up? What do we hope they learn in AoS 2? Right? And sort
it's too late. The books are printed.
Sure.
So
this is a hopeful thing, right? What do we see? What do we hope to see based on what we've got so far? Look, they weren't watching this anyways, Tom. Okay. They were like, oh, well, we were going to do this whole thing, but then I watched this show last night. Vince had some very good ideas. Let's change our entire plan. That wasn't happening, homie. So it's cool. It's true. All right. So, Joe, I thought we'd start out. First of all, you want to talk a little about kind of why this subject interests you as well? Why don't we start there and just kind of you level set for us?
So, I'm a YouTube Age of Sigmar person by accident. I went to Adepticon and I had fun and I made a video about how much I had fun. And then a whole bunch of people watched it. And so I'm like, okay, I guess this is what I'm doing now.
We pimped the video. Somebody shared it with me and I was like, hey, this video. And then you're a star.
Yep. The coattails continue because now I'm on your show. So but no, the hook was Age of Sigmar from the perspective of a competitive Magic the Gathering player.
Yeah.
And so that's like the why you should care. here's somebody from a different community coming in and experiencing the hobby brand new, and how I felt about it. And I found it to be extremely cool and very different than Magic, but it shares a lot of similarities as well. And so that's how this began. So I'm going to go into it. Yeah, let's go into the segment then.
Let's do it. One of the first things I wanted to kind of one of the first things I wanted to touch on was sort of the design lessons from where kind of we feel like Warhammer hit it perfectly or well, perfectly is tough, and where there was room for growth or opportunities, that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, and as well, why they are good and why they are bad based on the kind of gamer you are. And so, we're seeing a lot of these spoilers, and clearly a lot of them are for different types of gamers.
Right.
So I'm going to start with Timmy, Johnny, Spike. We'll move into, design lessons after that, because as with everything, the place to start is to know your audience. And so whether it be the local people you play with or your friends or what tournament you're going to go to or yourself, it's also kind of fun to kind of see, why you like what you like. And so you did a video on this. I'll just briefly cover Timmy, Johnny, Spike, but there are two more. So these are psychographic profiles for what motivates you as a gamer.
I'll link the Timmy, Johnny, Spike video down below, as well as I did do a follow-up on Vorthos and
Mel and Vorthos. Sure.
Yeah, exactly. Continue.
And so, really broadly, Timmy likes big, exciting things. He likes to experience something. Johnny likes to express something via his creativity, whether it be, combos or interactions, or the artistic side of it, which isn't quite there. It isn't there as much in Magic as it is in AoS. I mean, it's so obviously there in AoS. You're painting your whole army. Like, what's more creative than that?
Right.
And that's something that AoS does quite a bit better than Magic, indeed. And then there's Spike, which, the default is Spike just likes to win, but it's more than that. He wants to prove something. And there are, there are subcategories of these. Like, sometimes Timmy is a power gamer, and so he equates power with fun. So Gordrak, right? It's so fun, to use Gordrak. And no one person is any one of these usually. You're all, it's a gradient. You're mixtures of each of them. Mm-hmm. And some of them kind of, there's halfway points between them. For instance, a griefer, right? The rogue in World of Warcraft. These people, they're a Timmy, even though you might think they're more of a Spike, because they enjoy making other players not have fun. And so a Spike could also be a griefer as well, but it would be to prove that he's better. And so what this sort of encapsulates with psychographic profiles is that you can arrive at the same end result for different reasons, and it's the reasons that matter.
Yeah, do you mind if I put a pin on that real quick? Because, I completely agree. The critical element of sort of psychographic profiles, and which I'm echoing weirdly for some reason, but the critical element of psychographic profiles is that they show the why. What motivates you to actually play the game? And it's not the outcome. It's the thing itself, the thing that is drawing you to the experience, right? To doing the thing. And so, you mentioned that you could arrive at the same place. Timmy could love a combo. Spike could love a combo. Johnny could love a combo, right? All of them could be using almost the same synergy, but for different reasons, right? Mm-hmm. Johnny could use it in an unusual way to express his intelligence. Timmy could use it because it's big fun, and when you put these two things together, they get smashy, right? And Spike could love it because it's just an efficient play that makes him win. Just as three sort of simple takes on it, right? Mm-hmm. But nonetheless, they've approached it from different angles. And I think the why is so critical, because it's one of the things that Magic realized early on, and you see it really blatantly sometimes when they make a card that is so clearly designed for one psychographic profile. Like, Johnny's cards are the easiest to spot usually, because it'll be like an artifact or something that costs 4, and you tap it, and it destroys every permanent you own. And that's all it does.
Right. And
Something
you're like, why
that.
would you ever use this? And Johnny's sort of like, oh, I'm going to use this.
Right, exactly. They're immediately scheming ways to like, maybe I'll give it to my opponent, make him activate it somehow, or like whatever, right? Like, yeah. I'll do it and put a balance on the stacker. It doesn't matter. The point is just that there's tricksy things. So yeah, but I think that I think it also helps to keep that in mind because there are certain elements, armies even, that fit more squarely into these psychographic profiles than other.
You have an example?
Sure. Iron Jaws leans toward being a Timmy army, right? It's not because it features a lot of big stompy things. It tends to give Timmy a chance to experience something pretty amazing, like crashing a mega boss on Maw Crusher into a unit of 40 dudes and blowing that unit of 40 dudes right the heck up, right? Like that's a pretty cool thing that just happened. Like, and I'll be honest, when I do that, I'm like, yeah, that was cool. I'm like, I am so excited, man. And I'm not trying to like express my intelligence. I have done no genius thing or express anything or my creativity. I'm not trying to really like
crack the code.
I'm not trying to prove anything. Like I'm certainly not trying to prove I'm a better player than you. Most of the time when I do that, it's the wrong choice and a stupid thing to do, right? It's
not a stupid thing to do because Timmy doesn't necessarily care about winning.
Right, exactly.
He's the profile that cares the least about winning.
Sure.
To him, winning actually kind of sucks because then the game ends. And the game is the fun part.
Right.
Like if Timmy could trade another 2 combats where he gets to roll Gordrak's damage for the victory, he'd do it. Easy. Right. That's 3 more stories to tell,
Yep.
After the game's over. And Spike is sitting there counting victory points and having just as much fun because he won, And so sometimes these profiles don't butt heads. Conceptually they do, right? Like Timmy thinks Spike is uptight and only cares about winning. The win at all costs, the whack thing that's so popular. I've seen as I'm becoming more and more familiar with Warhammer culture. Spike tends to see Timmy's as rookies or something. Yeah.
Your response is like, don't you want to win?
It's a game with victory conditions, right? And like the point is to win. So Spike might have trouble, kind of seeing eye to eye with that, but they don't have to be butting heads. Timmy is in all the fun combats he wanted to be in during the game, and Spike got the win, and they're both equally happy at the end of it.
Right.
I mean, that's the perfect world. Obviously, doesn't line up, but it means that they don't have to be diametrically opposed in any particular game, which is a good thing. And very often that's not the case in Magic, but it can very often be the case in AoS because AoS is such a social game. Like in Magic, if I'm playing Magic at a big tournament or something, there's a lot of the grinder dudes, and I suppose I'm one of them. Not this extreme, but the stereotypical grinder dude at a Magic tournament. He's got earbuds in, he's listening to his music. He's got hat on, brim down, and he doesn't say a word to you the entire match. He says, "I'll keep. Is it my turn yet?" And that's pretty much it. You simply can't do that playing AoS, nor should you. And the game is built so that you don't. And it's not because there are so many war scrolls or whatever. There's 20,000 cards, in Magic. It's because it's supposed to be a social game where you're laughing with your opponent and you're interacting with them. And that's better, probably. And it's why I don't know. Even though I'm coming from the competitive side of it, I don't think we should jump in. I don't think we should go all the way. I saw that TGA post recently. Should AoS become an esport, like the most clickbait thread title you could possibly come up with? But
sure, of course.
And the answer is no. Even though I'm a competitive Magic player, because like that's one of the things I like about AoS. Is where I went to Adepticon. What do you win? If you get first place at Adepticon, you get a little trophy and to start collecting for an army you don't want. And that's it. That's it.
Right.
Your name, your real full name is posted online somewhere, and someone can click on the obnoxious Excel spreadsheet that's not organized properly. And maybe they know your Grand Alliance. They don't know your army list unless you post. That's it. Like, there's no like fame, or it's not like at a GP where first place gets $20,000 and a trip to Honolulu on the Pro Tour, where that sort of competitiveness is almost necessitated in a way. Like, because there aren't stakes. I'm not saying there's no stakes, of course, like you can take the game seriously and everything like that, but there's an amount of casualness, and I use this with a lowercase c, like not the casuals versus hardcore thing. This allows the community to be cooler, to be more social.
I completely agree. Like, I've never really run like the sort of nightmare whack player, that sort of thing that gets bantered around a lot. I've met maybe 2 of those at every tournament I've ever been to ever. That's not to say I haven't met people with like super hard lists or who played their butts off. But I've like the vast majority of the games I play, and I agree, I don't want to see it ever become something like an esport. I want to see the stakes stay low, the game stay social and fun. That doesn't mean it can't be clean or tight or stuff like that. That's fine. Mm-hmm. It is what it is. I'm not saying I want like a bad game. I'm just saying, like, I don't want that level of rigor imposed on the thing, because the second you set those stakes that high, you're right, that's the appropriate response to the incentive, right? Mm-hmm. When we play for pride and fun, like, I go to those big tournaments to hang out with everybody. I'm going to NashCon this weekend. I leave on Friday, right? I'm going down there not because I want to win NashCon. Like, hey, it'd be super neat, right? That's cool. But I'm going because I want to play my army. I want to have a good time with it. And I want to hang out with everybody who's going to be there, because I know so many of them and I'm excited about seeing them again. I only get to see these people maybe 2 or 3 times a year. And it's super fun.
Let's be honest.
And Tom won't be there. Sure.
Hey, shut up.
And Tom won't be there. So, like, fun story about the Timmy versus Spike thing. I played 5 games last year at NashCon. I won 1 of them. Okay. I completed my schemes in all 5 games, which is the secondary sort of objective thing. And I only had 1 game I didn't enjoy. I also happened to play Tom 1 game. You do the math. Because everybody else's army beat me, but I got to do my thing, right? I got to run around and do my thing. I got to be Timmy, because I'm certainly like a Timmy leaning person. And in all my games, I got to experience my particular brand of fun, even losing. I didn't care. I walked away from the game going, yay, that was so fun. I got to do my thing. Well, you lost. Who cares? I got to do my thing. Tom's army was specifically like, you don't do your thing. He had the WoW rogue, right? Of like, I will make sure you don't do things.
It's more like a counter spell deck. It's like a counter spell millstone deck. You don't get to play, and I get to play.
Yeah. And you're going to die slowly. Wonderful.
Hence the millstone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it's not even like good, like later stuff. It's like 2 cards a grind.
Sure. At any rate, so yes, I agree completely on all of those elements. Like, I think that it's right where it should be. If we're getting like, it's player wise, it's not that I wouldn't love to see some of these grow. I want to see more tournaments. I want to see the tournaments that are there grow, but I don't want to see $10,000 first place prizes. It just creates perverse incentives. It really does for a game like this that's not built to be that, right?
Right. And talking about Tom's list that stopped you from doing anything reminded me of a kind of quasi-famous Magic psychological study they did about Magic players, where they determined that for whatever reason, you cast a creature and it gets countered. You cast a creature and it enters the battlefield and it is immediately killed. People hate the first one more than the second one.
Yep.
Even though truly the creature never did anything. It entered the battlefield, was immediately destroyed or countered. Mm-hmm. But just the act of like being there for a fraction of a second, people were more upset about the counterspell version of it.
Yep.
And similarly, if you go farther on the other end, people hate land destruction the most because you can't even try to cast your spells then.
Right.
And so, well, that's just, what's the worst thing? I can't even do a thing.
You're right.
Like, failing at a thing is fine, but you got to at least try, you know?
Yep.
And so that's the That being said, I'm very interested in lists like that, especially Tom. I just like. I'll play against the cheesiest lists. I'm just interested in seeing what they can even do. If I can't do anything for the entire game, I'm like fascinated by it. I'm not even mad. It's just interesting to me to see the mechanics of the game work in a way that clearly the designers did not intend, and just have a laugh about it. Now, this is not the norm. Most people would be displeased at the least, but you know, it's just back to the profiles. That's just the type of player I am. There's also
I'm guessing you're a Johnny Spike combo.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's got a little Timmy, I think. Like, some people have no spike at all, you know, but I think everybody's got some. Like, I have a Frostlord on a Stonehorn. I have to be at least a little bit of a Timmy, you know.
Sure. If you rocked BCR at some point, there's a little bit of Timmy inside you, and he's screaming. He wants to let me out. I'm ready to throw snowballs, yo.
Give me the tools. Anyway, so then there's Mel and Vorthos, and they're different than the other three. They're in a different box because their aesthetic profiles. They're Y, or sorry, the other ones are Y. These are how you're able to enjoy yourself in the game. And so really briefly, Mel is, you are focused on the design and development of the game. You're actually a person who's interested in like the structural wording of rules, or how you take something that's obvious, like this monster is fast, and then it has a rule that says it can run and charge. Oh, cool. So you're using the game mechanics to show how it, you know, does this in a certain way. Or if this thing crashes into you, you'll die. And so you have a Stonehorn that does a d6 mortal wounds when it charges. And so they find it interesting how the game mechanics apply to what things are supposed to do in the game. Mm-hmm. And then there's Vorthos that's interested in flavor, in the lore. And surprisingly, a lot of players don't care at all about this. For as creative of a game and as interesting as the lore is in the game, a huge amount of players who are otherwise generally creative or you know, well-read or well-watched in things could not care about the lore at all. And that was one of the things, you know, looking into this new community that I was so surprised about. I thought everybody would just be naming all the legends and they'd know the names of all their special guys and everything. Not the case. And there's a lot of players who just, you know, it's their dudes with capital, you know, with capital T and D, and that's what they care about.
Yeah, a couple thoughts on that. To me, Mel is the verisimilitude guy, right? To a point, like Mel likes it when everything has an elegance, right? Yeah. Like the thing all jives, like the name of the thing and what it seems like it should be doing and what it actually does all perfectly fits, right? It builds this beautiful puzzle to where everything is elegant and self-evident. It almost seems like the thing is an emergent property of the idea, yeah. Right? Like it just burst into the world.
Past on 7. Like,
right.
Mel loves that.
Right. Yeah. The Vorthos thing and flavor is so interesting to me because I think it gets manifested a lot more through like that aesthetic appreciation. I think it gets manifested through people's personal take on their thing and their paint and their stuff like that, right? Like, I think that's how it gets expressed in Warhammer more than, like, there's plenty of people who like the lore and like to dig into stuff and stuff. I'm not saying those people don't exist. They're there. There's people who are going to argue up and down about why Alariel is really cool, and they're going to be wrong because Archaon is obviously better and Alariel just has trees. And I'm not going to let this go, Tyler. Take that. But I think a lot of people invest themselves into it. Like there's sort of the high level concept, right? And that attracts you. That's sort of, I think the Vorthos level in Warhammer's sort of high level. Daughters of Cain are psycho murder chicks, right? Who worship Cain, love blood, and will run and kill you fast. You know, they're a thrill kill cult, right? And that's all I need to know. Like, that's it. That's the level of investiture I need. That's the aesthetic I appreciate. And then I'm going to put my own stamp on that, right? Of how I see them and I paint them and stuff like that. I think it's also really tough as a designer to purposefully trip Vorthos, You know what I mean? Like, and what I mean by that is you never know what's going to catch and become something that has traction. I think of like the famous, like Rosewater told a story about that little eyeball dude.
Oh, Fibblethip.
Yeah, there you go. Him who just like he's just on a card and people just loved him and started memeing him and he just showed up. And so they saw that happening and just started sticking him into more cards. He would show up in the background and, kind of be around. They didn't intend him to be a thing, right? Like little eyeball man, they didn't put him out going like, oh, this is it right here. People are going to love our new eyeball man guy. Like, no, it's just, it happened. Right. So I think it's tough to like predict Vorthos getting triggered.
Yeah, that's rule number 8, or things learned number 8. The details are where the players will fall in love with your game.
Yeah.
The details aren't, they're not necessary maybe, but if you neglect them, there's nothing little to catch and become a meme. Like Fibblethip's a meme,
Right.
Memes can be good. They're not just, they're not just a force for evil. They're fun. And
it shows consciousness, sort of awareness of it, the thing, right? There's a love to it.
40K memes are better than AoS memes currently, but I think we can really work on this as a community. This is very important.
We can turn this airship around.
Yes, yeah. We can drive ourselves closer and hit them with our swords.
Absolutely, yeah. The one of the happiest sort of things that I've ever done in response to a model that I made, or that's ever happened in response to a model I made, was I have my like penitent engine Knight Titan, it's a sort of redeemed engine with like the canoness on the front of a Knight Titan, and she's in her canoness position, the front of the Sisters of Battle, and the Knight's in the same position. So it's a girl exposed on the front of a Knight holding a sword, sitting on the front of a Knight Titan. And when I posted it, somebody took it and made me a little meme that said, like, I didn't ask them to do it. This just happened. And they responded to me in the comments, said, walk me closer so I could hit them with my sword. And I was like, yay! I made a meme thing. I was thrilled. Yeah.
So that robot onto a bigger robot. So it's just Russian dolls all the way down. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So anyway.
So aesthetics matter, obviously. But going back to Mel and, symmetry and rules and elegance and this is why I can say, and if I'm wrong, I'll make a video that just says I'm wrong for 10 minutes. But we don't know exactly how rolling to see who goes first will go. But I can tell you that if number of drops has anything to do with it, it'll give you win ties instead of +1 to the roll, because turn priorities is you win ties. And if the main rolls, if the main rolls are you win ties on this one, and on the one to see who goes first is a +1, which does the same thing, by the way. Well, that's incongruent. That's gross. And so, they would have to be the same.
Completely agree. Vince and I have had this conversation.
Oh.
Yeah. Yep, in a prior show, and I said the same thing.
Okay.
They had talked about +1, and I said no, because they've already made this other rule, they can port it in and basically say that in this instance you win ties. Yeah, which mathematically is generating the same thing anyway, so it doesn't.
Right, because if you get +1, all it does is you win ties, right?
Right.
But
yep.
Anyhow, so this was going to jump off of how much outrage and skies falling we've seen, actually, for good and ill. A lot of people are very excited, and a lot of people are very afraid. And this, of course, it's kind of a bad thing, but it also is a reflection on how much your community cares about your game. The fact that it's happening is sort of like a good thing, or at least it's a good sign. And this goes to one of his points, which is if everyone likes your game, but no one loves it, it'll fail. And people make their voices heard when they're passionate about something. In other words, you want people to be very passionate about your game. Rosewater talks about they do internal testing of rares. And so you draft a rare and you mark a little 1 through 10. How much do you like this card? And then they total it up and do some math to it and figure out generally how much people like these cards. And so he asks the question, here's a card. that got 7s from everyone. And here's a card that got 1s and 2s for half the people and 9s and 10s for the other half of the people. Which one do you want?
Exactly. The 9s and 10s without
9s and 10s
reservation or
every time.
hesitation. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Because the 9s and 10s means you're succeeding as hard as you can with half of your player base. And the other half are passionate enough to actually hate it, and that's good. You want 9s and 10s rather than all 7s. People will become, it's just okay, or it's just good. You don't want to be just good.
Yeah, and that's the point. It's not all 5s.
Yeah.
Right? They didn't give all 5s. It was all 7s. 7's a good score.
That sounds good.
Right. But that doesn't matter. No one gets passionate and goes to the mattresses for a 7. You go to the mattresses for a 10. This is another thing I did a little bit. I did a video on talking about the value of hate. Like, to make things people love, the value of hate. To make things people love, you have to make things people hate. Because the other half of that equation, the people who are 9s and 10s, they're gonna die on the hill of that whatever. Right? That army, that model, that thing, that rule, they will, that is their Iwo Jima, right? Like, that's it. But the people who are 1s and 2s, they really hate that thing, right? And you don't get like, bad design is if you have a bunch of people saying 5s and a bunch of other people saying 1s and 2s. Okay, clearly you just identified it's a bad thing.
Sure.
There's no question there, right? But when you make things people super love, almost by necessity, somebody else will hate it, right? And the hope is that you can get the equation to balance to where it's like 60, 40, 70, 30 love, hate. But there's going to be some group that is like, that is terrible. Kharadron Overlords were my example of this, right? Yeah. Like, originally, like when they came out, there was a lot of people like, oh my God, these are amazing. I love these things. Now we're not going to talk about what happened to them since then and the sort of rough road that they've lived. But nonetheless, aesthetically, in the reveal, limiting ourselves to just that, that's what they were, right? They were 9s and 10s for some people. They were, a whole new world had been opened and revealed to them, everything people had dreamed about. And there were other people who were like, this is awful. This is anathema. It's heresy. Get it out of my game, right? It is an apostate, and I dislike it very strongly. I am not pleased.
Yeah. And so, again, also speaking of people getting up in arms about everything, if your audience is very good at finding problems, but they are very bad at finding solutions. And one reason for this is they're not game designers, right? That's not their job, but they serve a really useful function. And so, okay, what was like the most complained about thing? Probably shooting. Like shooting in combat, right? Like, people hated that. They hated it a lot, and they vocally hated it forever. And it doesn't matter if it wasn't really a problem. Genius level intellects with great hygiene made videos about how it wasn't really a problem. But it doesn't matter. You can't tell your players that they're wrong. If they're wrong, it's because you put something in there to make them wrong in some way.
Sure.
And so, yeah, they can do the verisimilitude thing, like, shooting. Well, I can't think, like, you're in a boxing match with a person, and how are you gonna, shoot? But, you can't fight human nature, and people come preloaded with ideas. And this is good because people know, like, what a zombie is, and so you don't need to explain it. But it could be bad, like with shooting versus magic in combat. Like, who complained about magic in combat? Nobody. But it's just as ridiculous. In fact, it's more ridiculous. All right, put Conor McGregor in a boxing ring with a guy with a crossbow. Dude with a crossbow, if it's loaded, has a decent shot at taking him out.
Sure.
Now put him in a boxing ring with a mathematician and a blackboard. And the guy's got to do long division and mix chemicals at a lab station, right, to cast a spell. He's going to be destroyed. He will be knocked out immediately. And yet no one complains about how ridiculous it is that magic is castable in combat, because there aren't wizards. But everybody kind of knows what a gun is and what a bow is, and they know their history and stuff. And so this is why shooting had to change it somewhere.
This guy running forward, punching this nerd. Yeah. Just like he gets nerds, wham! Just coming in.
Got a calculator. It hits. And this is why shooting had to change in some way. You had to do something, even if it was basically nothing, which sort of that's what happened a little bit. Yes, I know a lot of people can get mirror shields now, and there's some corner cases where weird tricked out free road vehicles with crazy ladies on them suddenly have like -2 or 3 to get shot, but those are probably going to get, you know, if they're not monsters, who knows what's going to go on. But like for the most part, I play with 30 Arcanaut Company and a Chemist in my mixed order list. -1 to shoot heroes, I don't care. I actually don't care. I hit heroes on 3s. Oh, it's 4s now. I'm still get 18 shots at Ren 2 D3. You're dead. Right. And it doesn't even work on monsters. Monsters are even more dead now. Like, okay. Oh, I can't shoot out of combat. If somebody locks me into combat, 9 times out of 10, I'm shooting them anyway. I don't care. But they had to make some sort of change so that it seemed like there was a change. And it actually does matter. And so everybody's kind of okay with it. Because the people who thought it wasn't a problem before are mostly like, well, this is fine. I can just play around this. And the people who really did think it was a problem before are like, finally, it's balanced, you know.
Or they did something, they listened. I can picture this better.
Yeah, they listened to my complaint. They agreed with me. See, I'm right, you know, and then...
Right.
And they still get shot in the face.
Yep. By me. Oh, it'll be so fun. Anyway. So, also... And now finally getting to the changes of 2.0 in a way. You don't have to change much to change everything.
Boy, isn't that the case.
In fact, it's sort of like the game to change as little as you can, but still change everything. Because not only does this bankroll changes later on that you can still make down the tube, which is always a concern. But also, you know, right now it seems like everything is changing. But that's not really true. And like, okay, look at 2017 GHB. They introduced allies and fiddled with some points. And the game was wildly different in 17 than 16.
Mm-hmm.
Like they changed this minor little thing and it's a huge effect for it. And so yeah, spells are going to get better. But you know, it's actually a kind of a minor change, but everything is going to be different. And it's great. It's one of the areas that, speaking of command abilities and stuff like that, we're going to interact, or it looks like we're going to be interacting on our opponent's turn more often.
Right.
And so this
is a big point that no one's really talked about, but I agree completely.
This is something where they're taking a little bit from Magic in a way. I mean, they're not literally taking from Magic, but I'm saying they are for the purpose of my speech here, where one of the main complaints mechanically with the game I have, besides pile-in, is kind of obnoxious, just rules-wise and how to do it.
It is, which, by the way, I'm still not convinced we're not going to see a change to, by the by.
I hope we do. It's a strange system, and it's not very intuitive a lot of the time, and it takes forever. It's annoying. But anyway, I don't have a solution to that because I'm a player. And so I've determined there's something wrong, but I have no solution for it. So it's perfect because that's what players do. They find problems, but solutions. And so there's people walking in my house above my head.
That's okay. It's fine. By the way, you mentioned like the longer gameplay thing earlier. Like we talked about kind of the length of games.
Yeah.
I will set that at the feet of pile-in every time. Like, if you go and look at like the time you spend piling in and moving models, you're trying to move a model in an advantageous way in a tiny space around other models. Like, really measure the time you're doing individual things in the game, and I guarantee you spend an obnoxious amount of time piling in.
Oh, one at a time, and figuring out where you can even go, and then after that, deciding where you want to go, and then after that, doing it. Like for every model of a 30 model unit. For every model of 120 guys versus 200 guys, I know that's an extreme amount, but like that happens. The other complaint was how much time you personally are playing the game up to a certain point in the game should probably be about equal in a game like this. And on your opponent's turn, you're not doing much. You're watching them kill your guys a lot. Like you participate in combat, so you're doing that. But besides that, you're sort of watching your opponent play for 20 minutes, maybe half an hour, and rolling saving throws. And so anything where it's like, oh, I'm going to take control of the endless spell, I get to move that thing around on your turn. We have a 30-inch unbind, so there's no like free turn 1, I cast all my spells. Now I'm getting to interact with you in some way. We're doing Battle Shock in the Battle Shock phase, and I'm making a decision then. Like the more, I shouldn't say the more, because there's a limit. There's a there's an undefined limit, but it becomes a real problem instantly when you reach it. But the more things you can do on your opponent's turn, the better. So that you're just not sitting there watching someone else play the game, because that's no fun.
I think it's another expression of that it doesn't take much to change it, right?
Yeah.
The few little interactions make you feel like, when you've already had combat, we know combat can be a big part of it, and choosing back and forth. That's already fine. That's done and dusted. I've always felt like even on my opponent's combat phase, I had a lot of stuff going on, right? Yeah. I think that feels very interactive. That's why I love the back and forth thing. I hope to high hell that we don't see anything like a change toward 40k, a charge or strike first, or any kind of that nonsense. I haven't seen any. No. Like that's a
oh my god, witches.
I understand. That is truly like the most nightmare of scenarios to me. Okay. Yeah. Because it would eliminate that great back and forth that exists in the combat phase, which is so elegantly, wonderfully done. And all they needed to do was light touches. At first, I was kind of against the longer unbind because it meant you didn't need to put your wizards into harm. But then I realized no one ever put their wizards into harm. No one ever unbound spells unless it was late game and you accidentally were within 18 inches. And I thought about exactly what you said. It actually does make that phase more interactive now. So I was like, okay, now I've got a reason to pay attention to their turn before we get to combat. Right. So, yeah, I completely agree.
Just the change to unbind, adding endless spells and the mechanics they have, and using command abilities on your opponent's turn. I mean, this is kind of a minor change that you can do some stuff on your opponent's turn, but it made me come around to the double turn because the game is different now. If I can do stuff on my opponent's turn, okay. Like that's it totally gets rid of one of the 3 major complaints I had with the double turn entirely, was that now you're watching your opponent play 2 turns in a row, and you might as well go to Subway for an hour, and come back and be like, okay, store manager guy rolled my saves. How many people are dead?
Sure.
But, give me a reason to be at the table, besides my opponent's wonderful personality, of course. All right, moving on. I got to touch on this, even though I'm sure you talked about it. Restriction breeds creativity. This is his mantra.
Yep. And
it's so very true. So our brains are smart, but they're kind of lazy, and they take a lot of shortcuts. Now, this is really good almost always, because when you're confronted with a problem, it'll search for a solution that you've worked out before, and it tends to do that again. And so this is great for eating breakfast. I don't have to relearn how to cook eggs every day of my life for 20 years. I could just have breakfast. But creatively, it's sort of a problem, because if you're confronted with the same problem creatively, you'll just naturally kind of get to the same conclusion then. It's like, how many times have you been on your phone and you're like, oh, I'm going to make a Nurgle list, and it's just like the same one. You're like, oh, okay. It just kind of builds itself then, and now we're back. And so what you can do is restrictions. Also, how many people have you found like this? Analysis paralysis.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I don't know what army to play. I could play any army. And you have people who are like ready to jump into the game for 6 months. They just don't know what they want to play. It's like one of the most common questions. Like, I just can't decide what to play. It could do anything. Well, creatively, AoS has a wonderful, Warhammer entirely actually has a wonderful little solution to this built in. And that's themes. And so a good trick is to start from somewhere you've never started from before. Start with a theme, and now you're pushed in a different direction entirely from where you used to. If your theme for Nurgle is, I want to get as many corruption points as I possibly can, you're going to end up in a way different place than you started. And I'm just talking about like mechanical list building, not like for instance, your army.
Aesthetics.
Yeah, aesthetics. That's huge, and it's really helpful to picking. That's like typically what I'll tell people when they can't figure out what they want to play in an army. Well, I'm not going to talk to them about. I'll talk to them a little bit about like play style or something like that, but really it's about having them come up with a theme and get them excited about it.
Yep.
Like my friend was like, "Oh, I kind of like Daughters of Cain, but I'm not sure." And then he came up with this idea that what if they were all dark elves from like Forgotten Realms, and so that's the paint scheme.
Like Drow,
yeah. And then like now he's excited about that, and so you just get to go. Or like, man, mixed order, I don't know what to do. It's just gonna all be good stuff. Oh, what if it's like a party in D&D, except each party is just like a unit, or like each member of the party. So you have the dwarf with the axe, and now you have Longbeards, and you have the wizard, and now he's a wizard or whatever. And this allows you to get to another place. Like my old experimental film teacher, Tate Bunker, he made this concept like just about the focus of all of his classes, the restriction breeds creativity thing. Like he would go on these long explanations about surrealism as a means, like the process of surrealism as a means to starting in a different place than where you're comfortable, allowing you to get to a new or just interesting place naturally, and instituting randomness in it. You know, we did the oh, what's it called? Oh my gosh, I forgot the name. A Beautiful Corpse. What's the name for that? Anyway, it's where you take a you'll take a piece of paper and fold it into thirds, and so you draw something on the first third, and have 2 or 3 lines, you know, extending off into the next person. The other person folds it. Exquisite Corpse. This is what it's called. Kind of gross, but and then that person only knows what those 3 lines are on the far side. They haven't seen it, and then they continue it, and then the third person does it, and you open it up, and it's this thing that you've created out of not knowing each other's frame of reference, but now you have this new, you know, interesting thing.
And this has always been one of the strengths that's sort of baked into Warhammer, right? When you look at things like you have to have X number of battle line, or you can only have Y number of behemoths or whatever. So force org restrictions, it's something they've leaned into a lot more recently.
Yeah.
You mentioned it with Nurgle. Like, you can't do everything Nurgle can do or everything Death can do. You have to pick something, right? And that, like, because you're just going to run out of points. Points themselves are a restriction, right? The new like enclaves and whatever we want to call them, you know, these things that show up in Ideneth and Daughters and stuff like that, where like when you pick this thing, it then restricts your choice of a command trait, and it gives you, it forces an item, or, you know, forces some other restrictions on you. So again, it's not super hard, right? It doesn't like put you in these rails, because that then gets off, that we then leave fun behind, right? If there's no choice. But it's about like pulling in the universe a little, right?
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead.
I was gonna say, just to jump back to, like, to tag onto that, I, you know, to return to talking about my list, like, I wouldn't have come away with the list that I took to ACON if I wasn't forced to play dwarves. And what I mean by that is, like, I was already committed to doing some mix of Fire Slayers and or KO. Like, I was in already, but I didn't want to play a standard KO list. And so at that point, I had to ask the question of, like, how do I salvage this? And if I go mixed order, how do I make a good mixed order dwarf list? And what does that look like? And so somehow, like, I ended up with Longbeards. Like, they weren't originally there, but in the midst of this, like, that was the right decision in light of the other restrictions that have been put on me by, I need to have this unit, and I want to have these, you know, that type of thing. And then what comes out of this on the other side? Like, given a blank slate, I would have ended up with a mixed order list that looked a lot more like the, you know, Frost Hearts and et cetera, et cetera.
By the by, I think this is why we haven't quite gotten battalions correct yet. Okay? Because too many of the old battalions were just like, and any other number of units you want. Woo! Yeah. Just go nuts. Right? Well, okay. Well, then the rails are off basically at that point, right? Completely. And once I fulfilled my requirements. And then some of the new ones are like way too tight, right? Where it's like 1 to 2 of these, 1 of these, 2 to 4 of these, 1 of these. And I'm like, oh, geez. Like, that's, like, you've really constructed a tight thing. There's not not a lot of room for me to stretch in there, right? Now, I do like that they then also came back in and said, okay, well, if you take this enclave, then it adds this stuff back in. So they, that's good. That's a good combo. But I'd like to see something in between, more of like, there was a couple that nailed it where it was more like,
Like the Blight Cyst that was like this, and this, 0 to 1 of this, 0 to 1 of this. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Or 0 to 2 of any of the following, right? And then it gives me 3 things, right? So then I really can kind of play around with that space. That's the kind of like that sort of middle ground is where I like it. I think it really speaks to that restriction versus creativity thing.
Yeah, I think Nurgle and Legion of Nagash are probably some of the most successful battle tomes, simply because you can't do everything you want.
Right.
And that's great, and it increases diversity, and that's definitely something you want to strive for in a game like this. You want to encourage as much diversity as you can through how the rules work and how people can build their armies. And, doing it in that way is one of the ways you do it, besides having just a bunch of armies. And so what else we got? I'll go.
No, I said it's true. No, you're good.
So one of the other things that one of the things I wanted to touch on and have us all kind of think about in light of this, right, is what are the elements we're hoping are more strongly expressed in 2.0 based on what we've seen so far. Okay. To me, I think they are stepping up, like from everything we've talked about so far. I worry a bit about the choice paralysis. I did do a video on choice paralysis as well. And because I think it's a real thing, right? I think it's absolutely a real thing. Like, to completely take it away from Warhammer, 3rd edition D&D had this problem big time in the realm of feats, right? Like where by the end of it, there was just books and books and books and books and books of thousands of feats, and it would just be like, I don't know, it's too many to choose from, right? For a lot of players, not every player, but a lot. Keeping that list tight has been one of the smartest things the new edition did. I'm a bit afraid we wander into that territory with all the new options for list building, because we know they will contain the units, the battalions, the endless spells, right? Saving points for extra command points, right? Like, what am I forgetting? There's probably other stuff I'm not even thinking of, but that's off the top of my head. That's a lot I'm already trying to shove in there, right?
Points, battalions, command points, endless spells, and then units.
And maybe scenery.
And what's your army?
Maybe scenery.
That's a tricky thing for the
units.
Yeah, for the newest players to get into this game. They go to the GW website and they click on order, and it shows them 25 armies. And you click on one of them, and there's one guy, and he's not a battle line, and you're like, okay, what is this? I think to a large degree, a lot of that can be solved, or at least eased, with a better interface to be able to parse through as a player to determine what even is the case. Yeah. And so it's like, for instance, it's similar to how people are like, oh, the game is much too complicated now with all these rules in second ed coming out. And if all the rules are in the same place, no, it's not. Because you're at least reading it in the same book. And so if you're putting them in the same spot, instead of having to hunt down FAQs to figure out how even rules work, sure, and figure out how your units are different, and look at the battalion rules that aren't in the main thing and aren't in the GHB or whatever, if you're at least putting them in the same place, that actually does a lot to help it out. And so some people have said, or probably they're just hoping, that they kind of reconvene a lot of those factions that got shattered. So like Order Serpentis and Darkling Covens are now just back in a thing. Or maybe they double down on Firestorm cities. And those are like the things, and that's kind of what you click on even. And then it just says a whole bunch of those units instead of by race.
That would be amazing. Yeah.
Because then that's world building too, and it's specific things are good. Otherwise it's just, it goes back to the original problem where it's an infinite universe where, and your guys can be anything, but it's sort of like if it's an infinite place where your guys can be anything, then it's sort of like nothing matters, and You don't
Right.
know what's going on. If you have real places and real Firestorm cities, and those are things now, and you have Chaos 1s 2 and Destruction 1s 2 and everything like that, organizing what units even are and what armies even are does a lot, I think, to alleviate that in a way.
Yeah, it's one of those things where that is my biggest sort of fear going into this new one. I'm excited about all this stuff, but you always want to keep the barrier of entry low. So I'm hoping the new rules, the new free rule pack, the traditional 4 pages of rules turn into about 8 or 10.
Yeah.
That's legit. You should be able to fit the whole game in that. Okay. Now we can have extra stacked stuff specifically for match play that exists in the GHB, but the core concepts and rules of the game should fit in that amount of space. Like, I believe that. There's no reason we need more, given the way this game is designed, right? My barrier of entry should be as low as humanly possible to learn this stuff. And then you make everything else as self-evident as possible, right? And I think that they've done a really good job recently with some of their more recent rules writing of making things on the War Scroll clear and much more tight and well-defined. So the person reading it will actually understand it, right? I think they've been loosey-goosey with some of the like spoiler text that I don't think is the real rules text, right?
I hope not.
Because they've been a little loosey-goosey with some of that text. But who knows? Here's an easy example of how people will read into things wrong. You pointed this out, Tom. So so in the shooting thing, right? It said like, which first of all, the number of people who didn't get how that worked. Again, I read all the Facebook comments for this one, like 2 days after it went up. So, I mean, it was like hundreds of comments, and it was one of the most enjoyable reads I've had in a long time. The number of people who went, so wait, I don't get it. I can shoot at the unit in combat, or I can't. Like, people read it and were just mystified. Okay. It's not one person. I saw this question many times. Okay. That was the first one. So there's just people reading that and not getting it. 2, I saw people say and argue. So like the first sentence was, here's how shooting when you're in combat works, right? If you're within 3 inches of somebody, you can only shoot that person, blah, blah, blah. Okay, great. If your unit's within 3 inches of their unit, you got to shoot that unit. Pretty simple when you sort of explain it like that, right? And then they have the secondary line where it's like, where I don't remember this exact verbiage, but it was something like, to the effect of,
if you're shooting into combat, you suffer no penalties.
Right, is what it was aiming at. Right, it was trying to communicate to you.
Oh, it actually said that.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, like you suffer no penalty when shooting into combat.
So
something like that.
So if you have -1 to hit because of a spell, clearly you don't, because you're shooting in. Yeah,
I lose all penalties.
Right here, I have no penalties, so my hands are tied. Talk about reading so much into something that isn't there.
Yeah, that's
like exactly what everybody went, and I was like, oh no. Oh.
So I'm hoping that that's not what we see in that they're just putting out like sort of sample text out of this. That's translation into sort of marketing speak, right? Not the rules thing.
A good example of that better rules writing is the Spirit of Torment, that their spoiled war scroll for the Nighthawk. That guy says, his captured soul energy, the thing that you can.
Oh yeah, every time a unit dies was what it was,
and you can return your D3s. It says here, if your army includes more than 1 Spirit Torment, at least 3 enemy models must have been slain during the turn for each Spirit Torment that uses ability, and no Spirit Torment may use the ability more than once in the same battlefield shock phase. Like, that rule would have probably been an FAQ in a previous version.
Right.
But they had the foresight to just put that on the War Scroll because there's plenty of room, and they foresaw that this could be a thing, and so they just really tried to spell it out. And if there's more of that moving forward, then that's a great thing. And so I'm very pleased by that, and that makes me very hopeful for some of the other War Scrolls as we move forward like that. Just nipping the FAQs in the bud, getting out ahead of it is a good thing.
And a lot of those FAQs aren't changes to the core rules. They're just exactly like you mentioned. It's additional explanatory, clarifying text within the rule on the War Scroll, right? To like to leave it from being just one sentence. I understand it's nice when we can keep it one sentence, but maybe if we just add the second sentence, we can make it still clean and easy to read, but now it's clear and we didn't need to go reference a second document.
Yeah,
right?
and it's on a war scroll with 2 abilities with tons of empty space. You know, that you could just put that in and it's not like it's too busy now or there's no room. So that's one of the, you know, things that Magic adopts that I think AoS could follow suit with, which is one of those. Just, you know, tighter rules, getting ahead of FAQs. They're limping towards the light on this one, like with keywords. They're testing the waters on keywords. They got a little, perhaps the difference between factions and allegiances and stuff. They kind of, their shoelaces were a little tied together on that one. But, you know, the idea of keywords is good, and they're using them more and more, and this can only be a good thing.
Well, this goes to me to the up to a point thing.
Yes.
Right? Because, like, so the right way to do this to me is if you've looked at, like, Witch Elves and Sisters of Slaughter and the Canaries, they all have, like, these shields, right? That work very similar. Yeah. And instead of trying to just staple a keyword on it, like mortal wound shield or some nonsense, right? And then having me go read some secondary text somewhere else, right? They then, all 3 of them work exactly the same, but every scroll has the same amount of text, right? And that to me is perfect. It's the way that oftentimes Magic cards, especially as you push down toward common and uncommon, will then give the full sort of rules explanation text.
Yeah, reminder text.
Right? Yes, the reminder text. Because, yeah, probably on a rare or a card you experience less often, or for something that's truly vanilla, like flying, I might not need the fullest explanation in the world, right? I don't need the full reminder text. But in many other cases, it can be a real help to just have that text there in the one place I needed to read it, rather than making me go reference something else, right? How many heads exploded in the first years of Magic because the card just said banding?
Yep.
Right? I mean, that's the best example I can
How
give.
many people can even say what banding is even now, you know, with oracles and everything? It's still just a confusing ability.
Right. So when you match
Are you attacking or blocking?
Right.
Yeah,
Sure.
that matters.
Like,
or phasing.
The
things trigger when they phase in? No, but they trigger when they phase out. Why? That's how
that's
they're phasing. It's magic. I don't got to explain. So yeah, but I mean the downside to that, or the way you could go too far on keywords, is that now everything's keywords, and everything starts to feel the same.
Right.
Where you're like, oh, these guys have Furious Charge and Feel No Pain, and then these other guys have Feel No Pain and Furious Charge, and they hit on most of the same numbers. So it's just like, okay, so I got the red guys and you got the green guys, but they do the same thing, and that's no fun. You want uniqueness. You want to feel like the things are different. And if it means that some of them have to be worse, well, then that's the game. Maybe they can cost less. Like Pigs versus Mournfang. Pigs should be 140. That's fine.
Pigs should be 140.
Yeah.
Pigs at 140 forever. That's all I'm saying.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on this. So, tournament AoS. One of the good things about Magic is we have a sideboard, and so you've played somebody, and now you have 15 cards to shuffle in, and not automatically lose against polarizing rock paper scissors matchups.
Sure.
And so in AoS, obviously you're not going to play best 2 out of 3 games. The tournament would last 37 hours. But unlike Magic, it's not all about keeping everything a secret from your opponent as long as you possibly can. Everything's real out in the open in AoS. So this is one of the big distinctions between Magic competitively and AoS, is that no secrets, no surprises, really. I mean, people definitely don't read the stuff you give them enough, and they're still surprised even if you actually tell them what you're doing, but that's sort of like on them. You know?
It's so true. And I always tell like them everything that I'm going to do, even like battalions and combos, and they're like, okay, cool. Yeah. And then I do it and they're like, wait a minute.
Right, yeah. All right, so this is Tenebrae Shard. He can teleport. I'm also using an assassin. I'm putting it in a unit. Start playing. All right, Tenebrae Shard goes over here, starts attacking. Assassin pops out of his pants or whatever. I don't know. He's keeping him.
Sure.
And kills your Relictor. You're like, wait, what are you doing? I'm doing the thing I told you I could do exactly 11 minutes ago. I'm like, okay. But, you know, again, this is sort of like on them. Point is that you're really open in AoS. And so after you hand your war scrolls to the person and you kind of explain what's going on, your artifacts and command traits are something you can now choose at this point. Like after that.
Like you're saying at the table.
At
like
the table.
Everybody says
You see you're
everybody
playing
sees the list.
Nurgle, and so you're like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm choosing this command trait and this artifact. And it's not really for the TOs to have to juggle because it doesn't have to be the same between rounds, so who cares?
Right.
You write it down, you write your choices down on your little match sheet so that you're not changing what your artifact is, you know, sneakily or anything like that. But sorry about the police sirens. It's Milwaukee. All right.
No, it's fine.
But now, you know, this is just, it's nice to reduce the polarization of certain matchups in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in a game that takes 15 minutes to set up. And then, like, you're on the back foot and you just lose. Like, it, you know, actually getting to play the game is better. And having some options like that is nice.
Yeah, so there's this is something we've talked a little bit about in the past. Yeah.
Yes.
And I think that there's a lot of interesting methods to go about this. I think that it should be, I hope more TOs explore this in more ways. I would love to see that sort of thing happen because I agree, like if the list is locked, you can twist around the edges with some command trait and artifact selection, right? It's not going to like, so Magic has the idea of the transformative sideboard, right? Where you can take your 15 and all 15 are meant to go in and literally like transform the engine of your deck.
That's fun.
Sure.
That's fun, game 3.
Sure, absolutely. Because you sort of go to nothing and then bam, you bust out that transformative deck. You know, Flores was always a big one for transformative sideboards, but that's not going to happen off of a single or even 2 artifacts and a command trait.
Yeah, this isn't like new units coming in like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that is, but that I
With
like,
summoning, it could be.
well, it's true. I would say at the same time, there's also, you could take so this tournament I'm going to this weekend, NashCon, the way David runs it, he's the TO, David Griffin, is you show up with 2 lists. Okay. And those lists can be as different as you want within your Grand Alliance. Okay. So for example, last year I had 2 completely divergent lists. Like I had a Fate Sworn list that was completely built around Fate Sworn, Heavy Knights, all that kind of stuff, right? And then I had sort of a soup Tzeentch list that had like some Skyfires and just a bunch of different Tzeentchy things going on, yeah? And they played very differently. And only shared like 2 units the same.
Yep.
But at the same time, my list could be exactly what you're describing. Like the Delta could just be different traits, different artifacts.
My Nurgle list pulled out Bellicor and put his points into the summoning pool. And that was my list difference. Was I had my core list and then my core list with the Bellicor and more summoning because he would be useless in this matchup. And that's it.
Yeah, you make the choice at the start of the round. Like each of you, you know, you show up at your table, you hand both of your lists to the opponent hands both of their lists to you, and you then play a little blind man's bluff game of like, which one do I think they're going to pick against me? Right. And then you both pick your lists and set up and go. I enjoy that too. That can be much more transformative of a game. Right.
And then an alternative to even that is like Holy Wars every year says bring 3,000 points. That's your army. And then at the table, you determine your 2,000 that you're going to deploy.
At what point in time?
Like as you're deploying. Like so you're so you're reacting as you're looking and you're like, no, okay, now I'm gonna go this thing. And so like when I went last year, I had like 7 variants of my list from this 3,000 points. And as I was deploying, I would deploy the things that were staples across. And then as we got farther and farther and I knew more of what they had, I would lean into certain aspects of my list. With that, so it was a true 1,000-point sideboard.
That's fun. I think that's a cool way to run it. Obviously, you must be this tall to enter is now 3,000 points.
Yep.
But I don't know. I like that. I think that's a cool idea. Maybe less so for armies with less options, but you know.
Sure. Or by the way, you could do the me where I in advance, and there was like bonus points for doing.
Well, I saw your army. You weren't about to paint 3,000 of it.
Right. I was like, look, man, I got 2,000 points, Steve. I want to come to your tournament, but this is what I got, brother. So like, I'm playing this list because this is the only list I have. So I don't need those points. Like I completely accept I will not earn those points. Fair dinkum. May I still play? And he was like, yeah, of course. I was like, we're good then. Yay. I don't have anything to transform into. This is what we got. We're to orcs. We're good enough because orcs is the best. So we're fine. We don't need other things. But yeah, I would love to see people explore this concept more. I really would.
So
it changes list. It changes list structure. It changes the incentive structure. Because what ends up happening in that environment where you can alter and change is that skews evaporate. Like skew lists. Because what ends up happening is if you run a skew list and people can customize as they're deploying, you're dead in the water. Because what they'll do is they'll have those counter tools in their sideboard.
Yeah, as a person who really enjoys coming up with interesting lists and meticulous deciding about this, or like I'm going to build a list and try to do this thing, and that's cool. I actually like getting away from skew lists, and so I appreciate that. It probably means also that you're choosing a lot more specialized units all throughout. I mean, there's probably a baseline of all-arounders, that's sort of a base or whatever, a bedrock. But it allows you to play with those corner case interesting things because you might not use it. Well, that's okay.
Right. Absolutely. Because there's so many. You're probably got, like, if you're Stormcast, you probably have some Liberators in almost any list you're going to run because they're just a pretty solid, foundation.
You're going to have a Castellan.
But right, yeah, you might like some of the more unusual heroes might suddenly show up because some of them are really good, but only in very certain situations, right? And so
the Veritant's not being played yet.
I didn't say that. I didn't. Come on now.
Possible that,
Well, now let me just say this. Now with Magic, like I literally just built a Veritant as we were sitting here and made the realization that he is actually on the identical chassis as the Castellan. They change hands of each and heads, and then the sash and everything else is identical parts. The more you know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Another 2.0 thing they nailed was, just that. Right now, with command abilities and command point system, your 100-point heroes, your 140-point heroes, that were a little too specific and nobody ever is using. Like it opens the doors for them. The, White King with Black Axe, or, Vampire Lord on foot for 140 points, who is just like, well, this would be a cool general in a 1,000-point game. But you're really there for your command ability, and I'm not sure. Like with command point system, I want more of those guys. These are changes that are going to get more things that people weren't using much of onto the table, and that's great. So that's a huge success as well, I think.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I had to go look up the Veritant real quick to see if he was going to be any good. I think the Incanter's still better, so the Veritant still sucks. But anyways.
No, they'll drop down like 100 points.
Sure. But you're completely right. The landscape of units that become interesting. How many second and third tier command abilities have never get activated in your games, never got used? You didn't really care about those heroes. You're like, that'd be cool, but that's just not the choice I want to make, right? Like there's something else that makes more sense. And this happened all the time. And now all of a sudden those guys can show up. It makes me hope that one of the things that we see is there, as you mentioned with like Beast Claw, but Beast Claw is far from the only one. There are just some factions where there are shockingly low numbers of people with command abilities, right?
Like an Overlord.
Yeah, sure. Is another good one. But again, we're not done yet, right? There's more than those two.
Yeah.
And I hope we see, you could fix that through the recombination of some of the minor factions, but you could also fix it through maybe we'll see some more command abilities show up on some more sort of, basically combat heroes that kind of have no other purpose. Right, like they're not just spellcasters or buff engines or something like that, where they have a sort of stated objective or reason for being beyond their commandy thing and swinging a sword 3 times in a round.
Wait a minute. Do the Griff Hounds and Lord Veritants become free now?
I think so. Yeah, both he
Yeah.
and both he and the
Dog.
Castellan bring Gryph-hounds with them, right?
Yeah, because it says after setting it up, you immediately set up a Gryph-hound within 3 inches.
Oh, there you go. Value.
They just dropped 40 points for their free summon, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't my little favorite guy, Mr. Priest, the Excelsior War Priest, doesn't he get a little Gryph-hound as well?
He does.
Yeah, he's like 80 points. 80 points to get a free Gryph-hound.
Now he's 40.
That's right. That guy is.
I mean, we don't know, or he went up to 120.
Sure.
So we'll see.
Aw.
Yeah, like let's remember, they got repointed. So nothing's free.
Right, because it's like Alariel can summon 200 points worth of stuff. That's awesome. Unless she's just 800 points now.
Right.
Then it's less awesome. It's so
Womp, womp, womp.
that's
Yeah, nothing's free.
That's because we're predicting things that are going to come out in a week, and then we'll all be wrong.
It'll be fun. But it's fun predicting while we don't know.
It is. I think it is fun. And there's something in the new edition for everybody. Timmy, Johnny, Spike, Mel, Varthos. There's, from these previews and faction focuses, not just psychographic profiles, but also whatever army you play. Like, it seems like everyone is just getting some candy. And some people are complaining about other people's candy, but for the most part, like I read the Iron Jaws faction focus. Isn't it what you wanted to play more orcs?
Yes.
You just want to play more orcs and have punchy combos.
Yep.
You know, Nurgle just wanted to do this. Like somebody else just like. It seems like everybody just gets fun stuff to do. Timmy is probably the happiest, but it's a Timmy game. Let's be honest.
No.
It's a centerpiece focused sort of,
Do you really think
big
Timmy?
exciting things happen. That's the sort of like the tagline for the game almost.
I
don't
absolutely
know.
think it is a Timmy game. Yes. No,
No,
100%.
no. He said that Timmys are gonna like benefit the best or have the like.
No, are the happiest.
Are
What
the happiest.
faction focus.
Oh yeah, not the faction focus. Yeah, I was gonna say with the changes to me, Johnny's are probably gonna be in heaven because you have so many new variables and permutations.
But Johnnies aren't very good at expressing happiness, and so I don't know that we'll hear it very well.
That's a good point.
True.
No, I think that
Everything is always critical.
Right. Yeah.
I think the previews naturally lend themselves to the Timmy psychographic profile because Timmy is about experiencing something. And when they're doing that marketing sort of information, they want to show you what you will experience, right? That's what they're trying to sell you. When they dabbled into Johnny, people got angry.
Yeah, that's true.
Because that's the 480 attacking skeletons. That was a Johnny thing. Right. And they did that. And the response to the non-Johnnies were like, table flip. This is stupid. Why am I rolling 480 dice? I hate this. And that's a fair response. Like there's going to be a portion of people like if somebody moved a unit into one of my units, okay, and said and did their things and like blew all their command points and said, I now get to make 480 attacks. I'd be like, cool. Pick up that unit. Next. Like, do I have next choice on combat? Because there's no reason. Like, I can mathematically look at that and go, yep, you just turned them. You atomized that unit. Cool beans.
Yeah, let's save 10 minutes. It's dead.
Yeah, like, it's totally good. I'm fine with it. Okay? And by the way, I am perfectly okay with that. Like, if what I usually, when this happens, I usually ask people, this is how I literally state it. I'll be like, do you really want to roll the dice? Like, will it make you real happy to roll the dice? Because I don't want to rob them of what they enjoy. Like some people, they might have built that whole combo. You're only going to really get to do that once a game because it's so expensive, right? So if you built your whole list because you wanted to make that roll that once a game, and I'm about to rob you of that by just going, you win, you killed that unit. It's their super dead. Good GG. I don't want to do that. I'll be like, go ahead and roll. That's fine. I'll pick them up, but roll it out, man. You do you. You know?
Sometimes knowing that exact number is very important to that sort of person. They actually want to know that number. Sorry, I just want to know how much damage it is.
Right.
You have 40 wounds in the squad. I did 156 wounds of damage. I just wanted to know that number. We're good.
I have a PR that I'm trying to beat.
Yeah, and that's perfectly fair. Like, I understand why people enjoy that sort of thing. It can be cool to see that happen, that you built your list for that purpose. I'm not going to rob you of that. You start rolling. I'll go get a soda real quick.
Right.
I'll be back. And you tell me how many wounds you did. Like, it's cool. You killed the unit. I have no problem with it. This is your moment. So like one of the things we used to talk about in game design, I'll use the non-inappropriate term for it, but like game design experiences, like if you think about gameplay experiences, they tend to look like this, of ups and downs. And then there will be moments that look like this and moments that look like this. Those are the memorable moments. Yeah. All of this is forgotten. It's amazing to me how much of our games we don't remember. Think about the last game you played. Recount for me every detail of every movement of every unit and the spells you cast and all that. You can't, because most of it's gone, because it didn't do anything. You did an arcane bolt, it did a wound. You moved on with your life, right? It wasn't some big momentous thing. So when you have these big up moments, you want to value those. And if that's the big up moment for somebody, I don't want to rob them of it. You know? As long as their whole gameplay experience isn't
right.
Isn't that's where things go off the rails, right?
Everybody needs to have their moment.
Their moment. Yeah, we had think of this shape right here. Think of this. What I'm
a sine wave.
There you go. Sure,
that's a really big one.
Yeah.
So, and by the way, the low moments are often just as memorable for story time.
Actually, more
like what sticks in your memory.
Negativity bias.
Yeah, absolutely.
It tends to be that we remember negative events more than positive ones, and especially more than neutral ones.
Yes, that's why everybody thinks they have crappy dice.
Yeah, everyone thinks their dice suck, and everyone thinks that their day sucked, and they get to a stoplight. Oh, it just turned yellow. It always turns yellow when I get here.
Sure.
But if you actually went back and looked at it, it's probably even. You just remember the bad ones.
Right.
But
so
that's another video.
There you go. So for me, if they don't gain value from it, I'll just pick the unit up. Cool, we can go on. But that's my point. Like when they started speaking to Johnny's, people started table flipping. Like that was a moment, right? But that's a Johnny thing, because by putting all that together, he has expressed, some element. Now that not probably as much anymore because they spoiled that combo, but things like that, right?
Yeah, like I see them do that, and I'm like, no.
Oh, you just ruined that.
Do that. Yeah, like everybody knows that now. That's not fun. You've ruined that for everybody. So now I have to go find something else.
It's only the next thing. That's the thing to chase. That's the subgroup of Spike, the innovators. They pride themselves on their ability to judge new things. Their goal is finding the next broken thing. That's a type of Spike. So it's halfway between Spike and Johnny in that case, because you want to come up with the next big thing. And there's also tuners as well, people who take something has a good idea and then they meticulously solidify it into its most perfect form, like that corn list. It's just a thing of beauty. It's so beautiful. It's too beautiful for this world, really, because there's no way it's going to be still around.
Sure.
In the free summoning world we live in, that's gone. That thing is gone.
By the way, Tom, he called it Corn Pops.
It's Corn Pops.
Yeah, Corn Pops.
That's so good.
It's a great name.
So Andrew Tolstead, guy who was on your show a few weeks ago, my roommate, he's got a version of that with Archon. It's his thing, right? Because he wanted to play with Archeon, so we have the Everchosen book, and he's like, Bloodmarked Warband, believe it.
He's a corn. Archeon is a corn mortal hero.
He's a corn mortal. He has all the keywords.
Yep.
He took it to Adepticon, played against Wayne Kemp, and he's like, "Yeah, we're gonna have to have a word with Jarvis about this corn business. That thing is not mine to share." So what is it from Glorious Bastards? And like the snows of yesteryear, it will be gone from this earth. Like it will not survive.
Yeah, that is a tears in the rain moment. Don't show your broken combo to somebody who has the cell phone number of Jervis Johnson. That's not helping your case, Eddie. That's just make sure.
So you smash one tournament with it and it gets changed anyway. It's fine. Yeah. It's probably better for the game if we more consistently have less Vanguard wing moments,
absolutely,
less of those, the better. Where people are playing an army that they're living in the future, and they're like, I already see the world where this doesn't work anymore, and I'm just getting what I can get before it's too late.
Yeah,
because there's going to be people who don't know everything, and they're going to actually be surprised by that, and that's no good.
Yeah, that's the world that KO lived in for the last 9 months. Like the Alpha Strike, Zilf, and Clown Car.
Mm-hmm.
Was it was a bad experience rolled up in a single ship. And they just rode that until, you know, the nerf, you know, will come down, is coming down.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully through a better, hopefully through an overall better play experience. That would be the goal.
A more diverse one.
Yes.
How about they have more than one single build that's good?
That would be a wonderful world.
There's like 8 skyports, even though there's really just one. Come on.
Sure.
You know.
I mean, Nar is going to get play now with having army-wide unbinds. Like, that's a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, all heroes get unbinds in your army. Current unbinds get better. Yeah, that's a thing.
Although I'm so proud of the community, I had enough Deepkin that you know, that banner that gave you an extra attack, and so people were like, I'm gonna put 10 banners in my unit. You know, everybody knew that was gonna get FAQ'd, and they kind of like talked about it. Like, don't do this; it's just gonna get changed, and it got changed 2 weeks later.
Yeah, we learned from the Thunderer problem.
We learned from the worst way of, no, not the worst way, but yeah. So anyway,
I mean, those 10 boxes there of Thunderers say it's the worst way.
Well, I would say that we self-regulated in a better way, right? Like that's the community having, and moreover, it's a lesson learned because we saw that they have responded. We don't live in a world where things go 5 years with being broken anymore.
Right.
We live in a world where things go 2 weeks often, and then like the very obvious glaring issue, which those are going to happen, by the by. Like, no matter how good you write, no matter how much playtesting you have, there will always be a few little issues that squeak through. And that's fine. It's okay. It is inappropriate and impossible to expect perfection. You cannot. That will not happen. There will never be a perfect version released. Cool. It's not, I don't care. I don't want perfection. I want to know that you're there and listening and going to continue to address stuff, which they have proven they are. That means so much more to me than chasing some mythical dragon of perfection. Right.
But did the Thunderers have to be unplayable? You know?
No, I mean,
did Beastmaw Raiders have to be on my shelf for 12 months? You know, can I, you know,
sure.
There's a middle ground here, especially with an intern could open up Adobe Acrobat and change a PDF in 2 hours, you know.
You're crushing my soul, Joe.
We don't want to relitigate all of that. There have been some mistakes on this road we've walked. Yes.
Mistakes were made.
Not every exit was a good one to take. Yeah, certainly. All right. So I think we should probably wrap this up, as we've been going for like 2.5 hours, but not that I couldn't stand here and talk about this forever. But this has been great fun. Any final thought, Joe, you want to share with everybody, sort of in regards to that, anything we've talked about so far?
No, I went with the you know, there's something for everyone in the new edition. I thought that was a nice that was my wrap up. That was the one that I was gonna jump in front of. I figured I would just keep talking until someone told me to stop.
That's generally how we do things around here.
Yeah. And then when they did, I do the, well, there's something for everyone, you know, speech. So yeah, I'm excited about second edition because everything is different now. And when everything's in the air and nobody knows what to do, that's the most exciting time for you know, I guess my type of player.
It should be for every type of player because realistically, it's what's in the box at this moment. Could be anything. Could be a boat. You don't know. Who knows?
Yeah.
You know, like when it could be
anything. A sky boat.
Could be.
Could be a battle line.
Boat.
Could be a battle line sky boat.
There you go.
A little gun hauler, satisfying battle line requirements. How about that?
There you go. So Joe, thank you very much, sir. We're gonna have you back on. I can guarantee that. It's been an absolute pleasure, buddy. So I appreciate you making time and coming on and chatting with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Thanks for being a good sport about spoofing your opening.
Oh, it was awesome. Doom did a whole, I don't know if you ever saw it, but Doom did a whole video as me.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh boy, I got to see that because man, there's something about him. Maybe it's his accent. Maybe it's him trying not to swear, but ending up swearing more than I could imagine. Like, just the knowledge that he's trying to hold it back and failing this hard is just so entertaining. And so him as you, I just have to see it.
You have to go watch some of the old process videos. He was like processing his grief, like over the course of 2 videos from the GHB release. Like, it was the most like cathartic, like painful, cathartic experience as he processed the changes that were coming and
Sure.
how everything was changing.
Yeah, he did a video where he had like a bald cap on and glasses, and he talked about wearing shirts over other shirts with other shirts over it, which I thought was great.
Yeah.
So it was fun. But anyways, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. But everybody out there, thank you very much for watching. As always, we appreciate you coming along. Quick shout out at the end of the show, not a pick of the week, but I did want to mention this. Shout out to Rob and to the Honest Wargamer, who is very close to his Twitch partnership. You have to average a certain number of like live participants per session, and he is very close. So if you have not already checked out the Honest Wargamer, you should absolutely do so. Rob is in like full coverage mode of AoS. Obviously, he's a great dude. He's got great guys to do an awesome commentary. Check it out. Go watch him on Twitch. Help him get his partnership. He's a dude who's very much trying to make a career out of bringing everybody great insights and fun and bringing people along into the new game. So all the best to Rob and to the Honest Wargamer. But thank you all very much for watching. Appreciate it. And as always, we'll see you next Wednesday.